Welcome to What Do You Say, the podcast that peels back the layers of remarkable individuals to reveal their extraordinary sides and their incredible lives. I'm your host, Frank Termini, and I'm absolutely thrilled to embark on this journey with you. The podcast name's What Do You Say, but that's not how it's said.
How do you say it?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
You got it. We say.
Hey.
Welcome back to What Do You Say? I'm your host, Frank Termini. With me, as always, my brother, Andrew Termini. Today I have, we have former Division I football player, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Renato Tavares, former Secret Service agent, currently Department of Homeland Security agent, and someone who's probably overcome or currently overcoming what could be the worst tragedy that anyone could ever deal with. And very dear friend of mine, Carlos Dallis. Carlos.
Hey, it's good to be on, man. I appreciate you, Frank.
Thanks for being here, buddy. I'm really, really excited to just sit here. And we've been friends a long time, you know, and I know a ton about you, but I don't know all the intricate details to what you know makes Carlos Dallis tick, you know, and I think I'm just going to start calling you Coach Los until you eventually just give in and come and coach at Pius. Every year, Simone tells me, call Carlos, see if Carlos will do it. So we got to get you out there, man.
Yeah, no, I want to do it, you know, just to give back, you know, to the kids and football in particular, because that's really what was a springboard for me to do a lot of things that I've done to come out of the situation that I grew up in, that I came from, and football was my vector out of that. So it always has a place near and dear to my heart. But I also know the type of time commitment that's required.
Oh, dude.
And as you know, and really I'm preaching to the choir, because you have, you know, kids and family obligations and that too. So it's just about finding the time and committing to it, and just knowing that once you're in something like that in the season, you kind of give it your all.
Yeah. I mean, and I know the type of person you are. You're going to be all in or all out. So I get that. But you just said something. You know, football was a vehicle to get you out of a certain type of situation and or lifestyle. And so talk to me about that. So you grew up in Ohio, right?
Yeah, grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and I definitely wouldn't say I had, you know, by any stretch of the imagination, the worst upbringing, like the poorest of, like, you can think about that, but I didn't. But looking back on it, especially the older I get and the more I'm around the type of situations I'm around now, like being in a nice neighborhood, you know, a couple of neighborhood pools and all that stuff. And then I look back on how I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. It wasn't that. It was more of, you go to the gas stations and stores, there's bars on all the windows. Just the air, when you drive in, there's people hanging out, you know, it could be people selling drugs or the homelessness and things of that nature. And just so seeing that on a fairly routine basis from where I grew up at, I knew I didn't want to end up like that, you know, having to resort to either something illegal means or having, you know, end up, you know, homeless and not able to feed myself or my family, things of that nature. I was always saying to myself, like, how am I going to get out of this situation, right? How I'm going to make something better for myself. And I'd always heard, at least that's what's always preached to you, is college. Got to be college educated. We didn't have any money. So I knew I wasn't going to college unless, you know, so I started thinking about military, because I didn't even know about loans or scholarships or anything until, so like, let's back it up for a minute. I played Little League football for about 87 to like 91 or something like that. And then I stopped playing it because, you know, our Little League football team was all unorganized and things of that nature. So stopped playing it, started doing karate for a while, for my middle school years. So I still didn't know anything about getting a scholarship for football or anything like that. I decided to play football again in high school. Show up for 2-a-days, and the coach is like, he's having a meeting with all the football players. We're all sitting around. This is before school even starts, my 9th grade year. We're sitting around, And he's like, some of you guys want to get scholarships to play football. And I looked at my buddy and said, you can get a scholarship for playing football? He was like, yeah. He looked at me like I was stupid. He was like, yeah. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. And so ever since he said that, I really remember that day. And then I would really dedicate like my workouts, lifting, all the football stuff that I was doing. It was always in my mind. I want to be good enough by the time the end of this is ended. Some school is going to offer me a full ride scholarship. And so my mom or myself or anybody won't have to worry about me paying for school. And in the end, that's what ended up happening. So that's what I mean by helping me get out.
So what kind of system did you come from when you were in high school? Was it like a system where you guys two platoon? Did you guys play both ways? What kind of deal was that?
So it was a situation to where some of the schools we played against had guys that played both ways. But my particular school, and even though it was a city school, is Beechcroft High School in Columbus. In case anybody happens to give it. Can I cuss here?
Hell yeah. Say whatever you want.
Just in case anybody happens to give a fuck. It was Beechcroft High School, but it was a city school. But it was, at the time I went there, the school itself, as far as the mix of it, was like kind of half black, half white, a mix, and it was more about sports. It had a real sports feel to it. Unlike some of the acts where I lived, wasn't like that. It was almost all black, and it was more of the inner city. But when we went to school at Beechcroft, which was pretty far away, it still had that suburban like sports feel to it. So the sports there was very important to the coaches and the kids that went there. And so I don't think anybody played both ways. And if you did play both ways, it was you did mostly defense and then a specialty return man or something like that. But all of us, especially my senior year, we played one way. It was either you was all offense or all defense. And so I played defense and ended up playing my senior year strong safety because I'm short, 5'9". And I was like, I want to get a scholarship. That was always on my mind. I played linebacker all the way up until senior year. And strong safety is what I ended up playing my whole year and getting that ride. So it was more of one way, and you better be good at that one way.
So at what year were you when you finally got some varsity time?
I was a freshman.
You got varsity time as a freshman.
Yes, and it wasn't like I just showed up and I was a stud, because I wasn't. It's I showed up and I worked really hard, and I was small though. I was smaller, so I was all like 5'9". I ended growing taller, and I was probably 150, 155, 60 pounds, somewhere around there. Maybe 170, I don't know. But when I started playing varsity, it was at the tail end of the season. We had about 2 or 3 games left. Me and my buddy Marcus Allen, no relation to the famous Marcus Allen, but we were both we were both freshmen, and we both made an impact not only on our freshman squad but on the junior varsity squad. We were going to just destroy those guys. So then they gave us little practice against the varsity to see what we would look like, and then we had some real beasts on varsity too. We had one guy who actually went to the NFL for a little bit, named Curtis Keaton. He was a real beast at running back. But we ended up practicing with them, made some headway, and we played D-line. You know, we were both D tackles, man. We were getting in there. We were small and fast, and we would hit you. And so we had a little impact. And so I got a little bit of varsity time my freshman year. That being said, I wasn't a starter. I didn't come in and was like, oh, he's the guy. No, it's just that we know you're good enough to get in, and you might get some play. I think I got about 2 or 3 plays in an actual varsity game. And then sophomore year, got a little bit more time at linebacker. Then junior year, kind of took off.
So you were a linebacker your junior year.
Yes.
And then you were a strong safety your
senior year.
So then now you're, not only do you have to, I think strong safety may be the most diverse player on the defense, right? I mean, because
you can lay the wood and you can,
and you got to cover,
others.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, so you got to, in cover 3, you're a linebacker, and cover 2, you're a deep half. And if it's if you're playing like one high man under, now you're covering someone man to man. So I mean, I think it's the most diverse. Yeah,
all around athletes are
for sure
safeties.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what got me out of that position in college, because I mean, you got to lay the wood, like you said, which I was good at. I can just call me up anytime. Sit there, lineman, blast them, fullback, tailback, doesn't matter. Get me in the zone. I'll play your zone all day. 1-on-1 against that slot in college. That's where they start to separate the men from the boys. because those guys are fast.
Oh
man.
yeah, especially D1. Those are 4.4, 4.5 guys.
Yeah.
You know,
They're
maybe
really-
faster than that.
Yeah. So I got a little funny story about a guy. So I was playing strong safety, and that's what I got recruited as defensive back by University of Northern Iowa is where I end up going. They was paying the ride. I didn't even know where Iowa was really on the map until they came to my school and they said, "You want to go here? Just paying for the school." That's another story. But anyway, so I get the scholarship with them. I'm going to be playing with Northern Iowa. And they got this guy named Mike Furry. He also went to the NFL for a while. Got a guy named Mike Furry. He was a slot guy for UNI, and he was also from Ohio, from Hilliard. And he immediately took a liking to me and my other guy that was going to UNI, both from Ohio. So he's like, "Yeah, come out and do some one-on-one work." And they had a quarterback, and it was going to throw to. I was going to cover Mike Furry one-on-one. Dude, I'm trying to cover this man, and first of all, he's very shifty. He's fast, and I could stay with him for the most part, like shifting. And I was staying with him. Oh, my bad.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you good. And so I'm staying with this guy, and first of all, he's making catches that I'm thinking you shouldn't be able to make. It's because one time the quarterback threw the ball behind him. He just broke down. His hand went behind him. He snagged it with one hand, brought it back in. I was like, man, that's pretty dynamic. But when I really knew I was in trouble is that he went on like a go route or something like that. And so I'm on him. I think I'm on him. The ball's in the air, and he made some noise like, and like as soon as he made that noise, he hit another gear. I was already at top end speed. He hit another gear like I was standing still. He caught that ball, and I was like, I'm fucked. As far as college and covering somebody one-on-one, I was like, that's a touchdown all day. And so, yeah, there was a difference. That's that speed difference between high school and college. And then there's another one that happens. So I hear, I got some NFL buddies at the NFL.
Oh, sure.
That's where it separates is the speed.
Yeah.
You just can't keep up, man.
So you were outside linebacker.
I was outside linebacker in high school. Yep. And then I went to strong safety. And then I went to strong safety in college. Sophomore year, my head coach comes up to me and says, and this is in the off season. He says, he said, what did he say? You can be a good strong safety, but you can be a great linebacker and you can play right now. I was like, at that point, I had given up hopes of playing in the league, in the NFL, because I saw the speed difference. I was like, I just want to play coach, man. I'll play outside linebacker. So I went back to outside backer throughout the rest of my college career.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a great position.
Yeah,
You know?
man.
You know, and especially for a guy like you with your mentality. I mean, you don't have a coverage mentality. You're a hitter.
Yeah, man. And that's what they were seeing in practice too. A lot of times I just I don't know what it was. I think kind of like my upbringing and some of the stuff that I had gone through. I had like a chip on my shoulder for whatever reason. And I really did like to hit people and get aggressive. In fact, sometimes I would hit people in lieu of getting the ball carrier.
Oh yeah, right.
Like
well,
that.
here as a linebacker, you got to take on the block
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
Yes,
so-
pulling linemen. You know, I just come through and you see a lot of guys try to avoid them, get low, avoid. I try to smash right through them, and most of the time I won. Sometimes I didn't, but it didn't matter. I got seen enough for doing that the coach was like, "Yeah, you're in the right place at linebacker." Gave me one of those neck rolls and everything. I went from looking all pretty, man, and having to just looking like
a bull.
couldn't move.
The old Howie Long neck roll.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Yeah, yeah.
Just made you look like you had huge traps.
Yeah.
Well, and here, how old are you?
43.
So you're just a year younger than me. So you still were in the game when, the fullback was just, a bull that just came through the line, blocking
Yeah.
back. And now the fullback, that's probably the most diverse position on the offense
Mhm.
now. I mean, now he's got to be able to bang in the middle. He's got to be able to, throw the ball to him, block, run, catch, all of it. So
There's no more Mike Allstotts out there.
no, that's
Right.
done.
Oh, man.
Position's done.
That's done.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite players.
Yeah, I mean or Moose what was the guy's name?
Daryl Johnson.
Daryl Johnson from
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. So
when I think of strong safeties, I think of Tillman. That man was just
Oh yeah.
no, what about Ronnie Lott? Well, he
that guy.
he cut his damn finger off in the middle of a game or
Yeah,
something.
he's like, you can't play. Just cut it off. I'm playing in the Super Bowl. Cut it off. They cut it off with like a quarter of his finger.
Who came up and hit more than that guy? God,
Yeah.
Knock the snot out of
darn.
people,
It's
man.
the mentality of the game has changed so much, and that it used to be that type of game to where that was a very much a part of the game. That mental aspect of I will break you physically, and that's going to break you mentally. and that's gonna be playing a part of it. So sometimes a guy would come across the middle, and you just blow him up, and don't even care. You take the 15 or whatever just to set the tone.
Yeah.
And now they've pretty much gotten that part out of the game. I mean, as far as hitting people like that,
And they should.
and as they should.
They
You know
should.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Because as it is now, I have my son. He's 9, and
Well, he's Frankie George's age, right?
yes,
What's he in 4th grade?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm glad he doesn't want to play football because I wouldn't say he couldn't play, but I wouldn't want him to play because football is one of those sports that where the better you are at the game, the more dangerous it gets. And I don't care how good you are, you're going to end up with some type of trauma to that head. Now, I don't know when it's going to manifest itself. It probably already has in me. I forget a lot of things. I forget people's names and stuff like that. Almost immediately.
I could go up to someone and introduce myself, and they tell me their name, and I completely forget.
Yes. All the time, man.
Immediately. It's terrible.
Yeah, man.
It's so disrespectful too, and I don't mean to be, you know, but it's awful.
I think you either got that or you don't, because I got the same thing going on.
Well, yeah, but you are also, you know, a head breaker too. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you probably gave yourself concussions when you know.
So you played in high school?
You played in college too.
In college too?
Yeah.
So, oh yeah.
So, I mean, I played my whole entire college career with a headache. Had no idea why.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, damn, my head is always hurting. Why am I always hurting? Well, one thing, they moved me from linebacker to D end, and I'm 6 foot, going against guys who are 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, because I played at a smaller school, I couldn't, they didn't have room for a 255 pound linebacker.
Right.
You know, they had guys at 185 pounds playing linebacker.
Right.
So like, well, you got enough meat on you. We need to put you on the line. And, that's a bad coaching decision, my opinion. I mean, I usually had that 3 yards to react. And then when you get rid of that 3 yards and you put a guy who's 6'5" in front of you, I mean, shit, what do you expect?
Right. But you could also make an argument that in high school you were out of position.
No.
You don't think?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, man.
I was a great middle linebacker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
When I was in high school, I was the weak side linebacker. He was a strong side linebacker, and then we had a middle linebacker who was also a savage. And I wasn't. I was a fullback, so we were in a system where you played both sides of the ball. I didn't. So it wasn't until college that I had to like try to get used to just playing one side of the ball. And honestly, I didn't really like it. You know, where you had an advantage because you were used to it. You know, but I was probably, an outside linebacker in high school just because, I mean, I was the best option, but I probably wasn't a good option. You know,
you could chase down the play. You had the speed to chase down the play. And
I just knew how to take on blocks so that you guys can make tackles. That's really what I did.
Yeah.
you know, I just knew how to take on blocks so you guys can make
don't let
tackles.
Frank fool you. He ran like Pachenko, like he was pissed off at the ground. Like he was just kind of just fucking just jamming his feet in the ground like he was pissed off.
Right, but you would rather me try and tackle you than you try to tackle me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you that right now. I mean, in my opinion, like it's different because when you're trying to tackle someone, you have to open yourself up.
There it is, Frank. A lot of people don't understand that. That's how a lot of the players get hurt, and you have to. I mean, that's the way you have to tackle. You have to open up. You have to wrap up. When you're running the ball,
You're tucked and covered.
You do a ball with your body, everything's more protected. You're expecting to hit exactly when and where. When you open yourself up, your neck starts getting cramped up, shoulders, fingers, everything else comes into play.
I would much rather you try to tackle me than me try to tackle you. And I never remember it hurting me. And I used to just barrel into people.
Yeah. And
like a damn bowling ball.
It's real difficult to get below you. That was the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like opening yourself up is one thing, but if your leverage is low enough, then you can take somebody's legs out, But again, you have to open yourself up and get low enough. If you open yourself up and you're sitting high, you get a helmet in the chest, done deal.
You get trucked?
Yeah.
You get trucked. And I just remember like, God, I hate defense. God, this fucking hurts so bad. And then
I loved it.
You'll see guys even in the league, and they'll manifest, and it manifests itself by when you see a guy when they say he's going for a kill shot. What he's really doing is also protecting himself. He's going in with the shoulder, doing that sort of thing. He either flies by the guy, he misses, the guy bounces off of it. And you're like, why didn't he wrap up? Because that guy knows when he opens his arms up, there's a good chance
that dislocate his shoulder, hurt his neck,
nerve damage, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Here, there was that one dude. You know what, Drew? He he played Division I, and he's got a real good sermon. It's you could probably YouTube it. It's called "What Happens When God Says No," and the guy did exactly what we're talking about. Had a brachial plexus injury, and the whole damn arm don't work no more.
Yep.
I think he played for Tennessee. Check it, see if you can find it.
Was that permanent?
Yeah, it's permanent.
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
it's permanent. And I can't think of what his name was, but he has there's a real good sermon that he's a preacher now, and it says it's called "What Happens When God Says No," and he comes up. They show it. You could probably see it online. He comes up, lays a lick on the dude, and he tears his brachial plexus, and boom, he can't move I think it's his right arm. It almost looks like a guy that had a stroke.
flail arm, yeah.
Yeah, it almost looks like a guy that had a stroke.
You know, Frank, that something like that. And luckily, my strength got regained in it. When I was a sophomore in high school, my whole college stuff could have never have happened. I actually, I remember the play. I was playing outside linebacker my sophomore year, and I come around on a blitz to get the quarterback, and it was like an end around or something. And the guy's coming this way, and for some stupid reason, I just ducked my whole head down and hit with the crown of my head right here.
Oh God, yeah.
And instead of it like bending my neck or hurting my neck, it shot something down on the nerve, and it set my shoulder on fire.
Yep.
To where I went back to the sideline, and they were like, "Lift up your arms," and I couldn't do it, and I couldn't lift it up. And even after that for like a week, I couldn't lift up my helmet. I couldn't do anything. This was so, and not only was it weak, it was mushy in there. Like
you atrophied.
Yeah. And so I had to come back from that, and I didn't even tell my high school coach really that it happened, because I didn't want him to not let me play in the next game that was coming up.
I remember the first stinger I ever had. I was a freshman, and so I played on a 1-8 team as a freshman. I go from playing grade school football where you could actually tip it down, Carlos.
All right, let me.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, for a team that's
if you hear it crackling, it means you're a little hot. If you're and we can edit this all out on market right now.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're cracking, you're a little hot, just back off of it and just kind of move it as you feel free. Make sure it sounds clear.
I just couldn't see Frank's face, and I was like, it's like in my vision. So
yeah, all right.
And I could turn a little bit, but anyway, so I go from playing on a football team in 8th grade where we didn't even get scored on to starting on a 1-8 high school team that's 2A, playing all the big 4A schools.
Yeah.
At the time it was Miege, Aquinas, those guys, they were all on our schedule, right? And I remember my very first varsity game, I get out on kickoff return. I got a 10 to 15 yard head of steam at this dude, right? And I'm used to getting 10, 15 yards of steam, and I'm taking you off your cleats. I hit this guy with everything I had, and I was on my back. He didn't even move, Carlos. I mean, and it's like, oh shit, welcome to the big leagues.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're playing Maryville, and I step up to block the D end. I was playing running back. I step up to block the D end. He got his forearm underneath my face mask and gave me one of these, and my neck went back. And I remember everything from here down went numb, and I just ran off the field, scared shit out of me, And I hated football my freshman year in high school. It's just, and then when Coach Byers took over as the head coach my junior year, he refused to let freshmen play. Mm-hmm. And I think, it was because it took me 2 years to get any confidence back. When you go from, laying dudes out to every time you hit someone, you're the one on your back. I mean, that does a lot to your ego. It was brutal. It was brutal, Here, let's watch this. So did he go to Tennessee, Drew? Am I right?
Yeah, he went to Tennessee.
What was his name?
Is it Inky Johnson?
Inky Johnson, that's right. Inky Johnson.
Inky Johnson.
And it doesn't look like much, but here, watch it.
It does not look like much, no.
That's it. And you can see he just falls. He's number 18.
No,
he was number...
He's 28.
Yeah.
He plays for Tennessee.
Yeah, that's scary.
So I'll rewind it back there.
I mean, it doesn't. It just... and I think, what, Carlos, if you look at the hawk tackle now, like what Pete Carroll, he teaches you to hit with the front. They teach you to hit with the front of your shoulder instead of the top of it. Mm-hmm. And if you look, that was direct contact on the top of the shoulder.
And I mean, look no further than Buffalo Bills having a guy,
Right.
code.
What are the
on the
chances
field.
of that?
Yeah,
That's
I
like
mean,
winning the
This
lottery.
is the kind of sport that you can take a hit the wrong way, and if you're physiologically in your body, things aren't going right, you take that hit just the right way.
Me and Jason just had this conversation on Friday, and I told him that because we're talking about soccer, and I was talking about my kids' soccer, take my kids to soccer and stuff, and I look around and I asked my daughter once, "Do you get anxiety before these games? Like, what's going to happen?" She's like, "No," because she's all loose. He goes like, "Yeah, I'm getting ready to have fun out here and play hard." And I was talking to Jason. I was like, "Man, let me just tell you this. Like before games, I mean, you're excited, football games, but there is some anxiety there because this kind of stuff can happen.
Here, if you're
This
not
type of
scared,
life-changing stuff can happen.
if you're not scared a little bit, something might be wrong with you.
Right. Because
You know.
I mean, the anxiety, I mean, you're excited about what you're getting ready to do, that you have an opportunity to do it. But I promise you, I mean, that kind of stuff is, especially if you know that the type of competition you're playing against, the type of person you are, like you said, when you're running, you're going full head of you're going all out, just like those two guys. And you don't expect stuff like that to happen, but it can and will happen.
Here, you're talking
DeMar Hamlin,
Yeah.
all kind of things. And things, it can change your life. So yeah, it takes there's another element to this whole game.
I mean, you're talking to. I mean, I've had 4 knee surgeries, 5 shoulder surgeries, a back surgery. I mean, I get it.
Yeah,
And I think it wasn't here at the end of the day. Like through high school, I was a fullback and a linebacker. I got hit every single play, every single play, and that linebackers what heels at 4, maybe heels at 5. Running back heels at 4 here. So now you got 8 yards, and you're just flying at people every play. Boom, boom, over and over and over again. And then by the time I got to college, I think that's why I tore my ACL my freshman and sophomore year. It was just, and then you're talking about, the training, which we don't know then what we know now. Like I look at how we trained when just get bigger, faster, and stronger. I don't care how you do it. There's no technique.
And recovery.
And there's right. Yeah.
Your recovery is an ongoing process.
Yeah. And so they didn't have YouTube. I mean, now if you're a strength and conditioning coach, you don't have to have a physical therapy background like I do. It's all you got to do is do due diligence. There's seminars. There's all kinds of stuff to figure out what to do as far as, how to train athletes. There's podcasts. There's all kinds of stuff.
Let me ask you this: like, how has the practice changed in terms of physicality from when you played to the kids you're coaching now? In terms of, because practice to us generally meant, especially in high school, we were smashing the shit at each other. A good portion of that practice.
So here, we never go live.
All right.
Ever. It's always thud up. And if somebody hits the ground, we're screaming at them. Stay on your feet, and don't dare get near the quarterback, right?
Yep.
So 110%. We went live every single day. And if the coach got pissed, we definitely went live.
Yeah.
So, and then there's drills nowadays that we were doing that you can't even do anymore.
Exactly.
The Missouri State High School Athletic Association says, no, you cannot do that anymore.
No more drill in the ring.
You can't do that. And hell, I think they called it Oklahoma, where back then they would have, and this is actually how I tore my ACL in college. You would have a D lineman, an offensive lineman, a running back, and a linebacker. So ultimately it was 1-on-1 between the running back and the linebacker. That's all it was. Well, now you can't have the linebacker anymore. You can have O-line, D-line, running back, but you can't have the linebacker anymore.
Okay.
Because it's a fucking suicide mission. Or we would do the sideline drill where we'd line them up 10 yards apart and have them take an angle. And it was fucking horrible. It was so miserable. And there's there's a lot of those drills you can't do anymore.
Well, and with heads up football, I mean, when I coached Little League, that whole movement of heads up football and how you tackle, I would have hated it. Because there's so much thinking you got to go through when it's just like when we were playing, it's like just put your head in there,
right? But now
keep your head up and make sure your face is
on the
ball.
We do tackling stations every single practice now, because ultimately what has to happen is you can't be thinking, your body has to just react. It's like jiu-jitsu. If you're thinking, you're late, you're done, you're screwed. Right. So, you get put in a position, You're not thinking. Your body's just reacting to whatever your opponent's doing to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with there's nothing more unnatural than tackling.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Yep.
There's nothing more unnatural in sports than tackling, in my opinion. So
That's what I want to hear about. How did your football career lead to jiu-jitsu down the road?
What it really was after football was coming to an end. I knew that, and so I'm like, okay, I want to continue to work out and have that feeling of physical exertion.
Now, as you were going through this, thinking this was college.
This is in college, so
Yeah.
I'm in college, and it was coming to an end. So I took up to, I don't even know how I found this boxing place that was close to. It was in Waterloo, Iowa, actually. So I went over to this boxing gym. I started, working out with these guys and boxing and doing stuff like that. And I was like, I really like this combat sort of thing. But that only lasted for a couple of months, and then it's getting towards graduation, and I'm like, what am I going to do?
This got to be 2003.
This was 2002. So I'm like,
I'm thinking of the height of the sport and what you're telling me.
Yeah. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is in 2002, what I'm going to do, I'm going to be, I guess, first of all, I wanted to be in the Secret Service. So let's just get that straight, because I thought, first I want to go to NFL. And I was like, if I'm not going to NFL, I wanted to go in what I thought was the upper echelon of law enforcement. I was like, that's the Secret Service. I watch TV all the time, and I see these guys in their black suits, and they look like they just doing some very important things. The man standing next to the man. So I was like, Secret Service. So when I was in college, a police department, KCPD, came down from Kansas City, and they started talking to a college class I was in, about being a police officer. And I wouldn't really listen until the lady was there. She said a lot of our our KCPD guys go on to be federal agents. She said, matter of fact, my husband is in the Secret Service right now. So I tuned my ear in. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and be a KC cop so I can be in the Secret Service later. So I went to the police academy, got hired, went to the police academy in Kansas City, and they were training jiu-jitsu out of the police academy at the time. I saw these guys in pajamas, and and I'm like, and I just look at them, and I see them rolling around on the ground, and I said, that looks kind of interesting, but I mean, if they got in there with a real one such as myself, they'd be in some trouble, is what I was thinking. Because at the time, I was benching 425 pounds. I could still do that. I was still strong, still athletic. I still had it, and so I thought I was pretty damn tough. The fight calls we had in the police academy where somebody would break bad on you, had to wrestle them down and handcuff them. I could do that, no problem. I thought I knew what I was doing. And so we couldn't get in jiu-jitsu until we graduated and became cops, because they didn't want you to get hurt. But they said, after you graduate, you can do what the hell you want to do. And so it was free too for all the cops, because they was using our facility. So graduated, I show up to a class at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJJ. I'm looking at these guys, and it was no-gi night. I'm looking at these guys roll around, thinking to myself, man, I'll fuck these guys up. I'm sitting on the back, because I don't want to just jump in like, who want to get fucked up? I'm trying to play that humble role, like I'm back here. And then this guy named Ethan Day.
I know Ethan, so I gotta go ahead. You finish, and I'll tell you my story.
Ethan Day's a black belt right now. He's been doing it for years, obviously longer than I've been doing it, which is years. But he's like, he comes up to me, he's like, hey, he sees me sitting there, he's like, you want to try this? I'm like, yeah, I'll jump in here. And he's not that big a guy, especially
he ain't but 160,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
and at the time, I'm 215.
Yeah.
Of strong and athletic. And so he was like, all right, just get him. And I was like, I've never done this before, but he's like, just get in my guard. And so I got in his guard, and he was like, all right, just open hand. He's like, just try to hit me. I was like, what? He was like, just open hand, try to hit me. And me, I don't give a shit. If somebody says, just try, I was like, all right, fuck it. Now, you ready? He was like, yeah. And then as soon as I reached my hand back to hit him, he pulled me closer with his legs, which made me post my hands on a mat. And then he wrapped up an arm. He swept me over. He got on top of me, pinned my arms, and now his hands are free. And I'm trying with all my might to get away. And I was like, and it felt so fucking magical, because in all the stuff that I've been watching, like, people generally let you do, like, okay, throw your punch this way. I'm gonna block this way. I was trying whatever came to mind. I couldn't do shit. And that's when I was like, I got to learn this.
Okay, so you got your ass kicked by Ethan Day.
Yes.
I got my ass kicked by his girlfriend.
Leanna.
Yeah. So Joe Giglio, Okay.
Yep.
You got to come to jiu-jitsu. You got to, and I'm the same way you were. I'm probably at the time 29. I'm still in decent shape. I'm like, fucking, all right, Joe, I'll go, whatever. And Leanne's like, you want to roll? And I'm like, I'm not married at the time. Right. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to roll, you know, because she's a good looking girl, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, are they married or what is it?
I don't know. I think they're still just together, but not married. I don't really know, but yeah, they've been together for a long
like,
time.
Hell yeah, blue eyes, I'll roll with you, right? It's Carlos,
You're on his list. He ain't even looking for you,
dude.
You listen to your podcast like I'm gonna send my wife to kick his ass.
There, it's literally. She must have tapped me 6 times, and I don't even think she started sweating. And I think she was talking to me. I remember her talking to me as she was doing it, like another day at the office. And I went home, and at the time I was living with Tommy Cascone, and I was just demoralized. And he goes, "What the hell happened to you?" And I told him, and from that day on, I got online, I bought a gi. I'm like, I got to know what this girl knows.
Yeah.
You know, and that's when so I trained basically, well, here from 29 to 40. I started coaching at 40. But even then, it was, you know, had Gianna, had the twins, started this business. So, you know, naturally there's breaks and life happens. But anytime I got the chance, I would go back, you know, 6, 7, 8 months at a time. And then something would happen and I'd have to step away for a couple months and then I would go back. So it was inconsistent. But I mean, I absolutely, if I didn't coach, I 100% would be on the mat, 100%. Yes. And you know, I think the reason why I kept having, you know, injuries was because that's not where I was supposed to be. I feel like I was supposed to be coaching, and I never would have stopped jiu-jitsu had I not gotten injured. Yeah. Like if you remember, I would just go train with you at your house, and the environment was controlled, and you know I would train with you, and then I would go do tournaments because I didn't want to go. I wanted to go train what I knew my body could do. I didn't want to go train. Not that those techniques aren't good. I'm not saying that, but you know what your body can do, and Absolutely. You know what your body can't. Yep. I'm not going to do an inverted sweep. My body can't do it, you know. Yep. So I wanted to just go drill with what I could drill. So I was training with you, Travis, Jesse, and just simply working on me. And then I would go compete in tournaments. And so after my shoulder surgery, remember, I was just over at your house. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to class. And you go, here, listen, Frank, don't go with no white belts. Don't go. You kept saying. No, man. So what did I do? I rolled with a white belt, and I ended up tearing my pec. And it wasn't his fault. It was just a freak deal, right? And I'll never forget, you said 2 things was hysterical. You go, didn't I tell you not to go with any white belts? I said, yeah, I know. So you remember you helped me get my gi off, and my pec was just swollen. Yeah. My arm was all black and blue. And we're both sitting there, and we're defeated. And I go, man, my wife's going to kill me. And he goes, he's dead serious. He wasn't even smiling. He goes, tell her I didn't do it, man.
Yeah, man. I tried to tell you.
He goes, tell her I didn't do it. Looked like he was scared of her. Tell her I didn't do it, man.
Because she had said that he could only train with me and Travis and Jesse. And then, so I didn't want to be on the shit list. I'm like, man, let her know that I had nothing to do with that. And so, I tell people too, I mean, that's the thing about jiu-jitsu is that, like when a white belt comes in, and we still have them, you know, obviously any school you go to, you're going to have new people come in. And they're going to do what they're going to do. And I would never go and tell like a white belt, like they get in there, as long as they're not biting me or trying to poke my eyes and stuff like that, do all that wild shit. Because you got to know as a white belt that all that wild shit's not going to get you anywhere, but in a worse situation.
Right.
It's going to get you tired. And then in the end, you're going to be choked out and tired, or have your arm, you know, flexed out and tired. So, but you can't tell them that. You got to show them that. And so, because you couldn't have told me when I was white, you couldn't tell me you don't use so much strength. I'm like, hell, I'm going to use my strength. I earned this. But you have to see that is not getting you anywhere. But the way you see that is going with a guy that is, or a female that has some skill that won't be doing the same butt head thing that you're doing. Like as far as strength to strength.
Right.
Because what's going to happen is if their face is shaking and your face is shaking, one of y'all going to get hurt. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time for somebody gets hurt because your body's going to go in a direction it shouldn't. And you're not going to go with it. You're going to fight that. And also, beyond all of that, the longer you're in the sport of jiu-jitsu and the art or whatever, you realize that I don't give a damn how good you are. You're not the best person in the fucking world at it. I don't give a damn if you're Nicholas Marigali. I don't care if you're any of the big names that you've ever heard of, Marcelo Garcia. You're not the best in the world.
Yeah.
And even if you win worlds absolute, you double gold, the moment is so fleeting because it's just the right things aligned at the same time.
Right.
So I'm just saying all that to say, if you're doing it for a while, your ego should be checked to the point that even if this white belt ends up getting me in something and taps me, no one's won or lost anything. We've all just learned something. And so that alone lets you relax more and let you understand that this training is not a fight for your life or survival. We're just in a very aggressive way or sporty way or however you want to see it, trying to make each other better.
In a way, do you find that the top competitors have surrendered their ego?
100%.
You have to.
Yeah.
There's nobody that's good at jiu-jitsu that has an ego.
Mm-hmm.
Colin McGregor is not a jiu-jitsu.
But he's not
No,
a
he's
jiu-jitsu
not.
guy.
No,
Right. He might be he might be a purple belt.
He can't bring that ego into jiu-jitsu and expect.
But here, Conor McGregor is he sells fights, but Conor McGregor is a humble guy. Believe it or not.
I don't know.
I mean, he's made comments. I mean, here, look, the guy got beat by what the hell, Magnarenov, or how do you say his name?
Oh, I forgot.
Khabib.
Yeah, Khabib. Yeah.
He gets beat by Khabib. The dude jumps over the fence and cracks him. He doesn't retaliate. He doesn't do any of that. And then the next day, he's at the Dallas Cowboy game. I mean, just having a good time with them guys. I mean, that's not a guy that I think shows pride. I mean, and plus he made the comment. He's cocky in prediction, confident in preparation. He's humble in victory and defeat. That's a big comment to make.
Yeah,
in my
no,
opinion.
for sure.
To your point, Frank, I think with a lot of these things, when you're talking about someone, it could be Conor, it could be Mayweather, it could be some of the fighters that are out here right now in the UFC, the top guys. What you have to do most of the time is sell the fight, or else people aren't going to buy it because it's pay-per-view. So you take. If I'm a big Conor McGregor fan, I'm going to buy the fight either way.
I am a Conor McGregor fan.
Okay, so you're going to buy the fight either way.
And I'm betting on him he could lose 5 fights in a row. I'm betting on him.
What they need and the promoters need is people who are on the fence. Should I get this fight? Should I not get this fight? So then when they start advertising it, dudes talking about homie's mom. There's all kind of other bad blood in the air. People talking, making predictions. I'm going to knock your ass out round 1. I guarantee that. I put my life on the line. My mama. And then the more you look at it, like even me, I wasn't going to buy the fight at first, but I got to see if this dude is that man in the... So you start buying. So a lot of them are selling these fights.
Sure.
And what happens? 9 times out of 10, not always. Sometimes somebody jumps over the cage and smacks somebody. But 9 times out of 10, when the fight is ended, they say, good fight, bro. I appreciate it. And maybe we can run it back. Right. Because, at the end, so the stuff that you see, all that shit talking a lot, but sometimes it can go too far. Yeah. Like with Conor McGregor and Khabib, I think it went too far when a dude started talking about somehow got on the religion.
Well, you're talking about an Irish Catholic and a Russian Muslim.
Right. And then
that wasn't going to go good.
Yeah. And at that point, the guys feel like it's personal. But that I think is an exception to the rule. Yeah. I think for the most part, guys talk a lot of shit so they can sell the fight. Yeah. In jiu-jitsu, we historically have not had that problem because no one gave a fuck about jiu-jitsu except for the people who did it. Right. And so it was more like a brotherhood. Now, the bigger and bigger jiu-jitsu gets, you're starting to see names come out that are putting more buzz behind the fights that are going on. So you might see something like Gordon Ryan saying, building up the fight between him and I know this is kind of old by now, but Andre Galvao, say, for example.
Andre Galvao, he was the one that was in Metamorphosis with Hidon Gracie. It was a great fight.
Yeah, yeah. And so sometimes you see guys starting to build up a little bit of that, but it's not gotten to that level of boxing. Or UFC, just because there's not that heavy amount of money and paper and paydays in there. But I can guarantee you this: if they were putting up the paydays, just like boxing was putting up the paydays, and what needed to happen was you need to talk shit against your opponent, I'm talking shit.
Well, hell yeah! I'm
not gonna say I personally am talking shit, but I can understand why.
Yeah, for the money, I'll talk shit. Are you kidding me? And I'm not someone
theatrical.
I don't want to put that type of pressure on myself. If I'm a guy that's getting ready to jump into a damn cage with someone or get into the ring with someone, I'm not going to talk shit because the only thing that's going to do is put more pressure on me. And I don't want to do that. But now if you're looking at it, let's say you're looking at it from a fighter standpoint, fuck, I don't want to do this very long. I don't want to do this, 10 years.
I can't.
Right, and your body can't do
body
it.
can't
So now you're
do
thinking,
it.
I got to make the amount of money that I can make as fast as I can. I'm talking about his mother, his father, his dog. You know what I mean? Fuck it. I don't care if he knocks me out cold, and I'm talking shit. I make as much money as I
I'll
can.
give you 12 seconds for $6 million.
So I think that's got to be part of what's going on in their head.
It's part of it because Shannon Sharp said it, a lot of his on his podcast, on the shows. He said it best, and he's notorious for talking a lot of shit. Before when he played, he's a football player. You guys know.
I know shit. Denver Broncos.
Yeah, so he talked historically a lot of shit, but then he was like, you know what? First of all, he backed it up a lot, but then he was like, whether I talk a little or I talk a lot, we still got to play. And you still, if I give you all the respect in the world, and we get in the cage, you still gonna try to take my head off.
100%.
If I talk shit about you, you still gonna try to do the things that you're gonna do within the confines and the rules of that particular sport. So if there is an end game to talking shit, then why not take it? Like when Shannon played, he wasn't gonna get no more money, but could he get in your head? Could he take you outside what you would normally do and make you
make an emotional response?
Make an emotional response.
Yeah.
So there's sometimes there is an end game just to talking shit in that manner, or the means of just getting paid more. So I understand it.
These cameras good, Drew?
Yeah, I like Sterling Sharp, man. I think he was a badass.
Oh man, yes,
he was an animal. I mean, he for some reason he got injured, but like I felt like Shannon was a beast. He was a bull, a hell of a tight end. But Sterling was
a better of the two brothers.
I would say that. Yeah, for
Shannon
sure.
say it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dude, he was an animal.
So let's talk about so you go to the Secret Service,
Mm-hmm.
and there's training you got to go through in order to talk. What was the training like? What did you have to do?
So it was when I first of all I applied, for
what years were you active as Secret Service?
Secret Service was 2006 to 2015, and I can tell you why I left and everything. But
so wait, you didn't finish
what
the Secret Service? Why did I think that you did?
No, I didn't retire from the Secret Service. No,
well, I know that, but you did get through training.
Oh
and all
yeah.
that.
I was
Okay.
Secret Service agent for 8.5 years.
Okay, all right.
So in 2006, I was a Kansas City, Missouri police officer, and I remember I had already applied for the Secret Service after a little bit of time in the Secret Service. So a little bit of time in the police department, and so I'm kind of waiting on to get my hire with them because it was hard to get hired with them back in the day. You had to do a bunch of stuff, you had to take a bunch of tests and polygraph and all kind of stuff. So it took a while. And which I found out for me, it was actually a shorter time than some. It took one guy, I believe, 2 years or more. For me, it was like 9 months. So I get hired with them, and so the training was 3 months in Glencoe, Georgia, and that's it's called Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, and it's 3 months. And for me, it was fun as hell to me because at the time I was pretty young. I was 26. And so we go there and you learn basic federal law enforcement rules, how the grand jury works, how court systems work, how search warrants and all that stuff. And then some of the fun stuff is like how to drive a car and when it loses control. So they would do things like you get in this car and they wet the pavement up. Like it's just wet as hell and they're constantly spraying it. And then you're driving this car trying to turn corners and there's a guy standing outside the car who applies a brake when he wants to brake the car, generally when you're in the middle of a damn turn. And so you're trying to recover that thing. And then you had all kind of driving courses. That shit was fun. Shooting was fun. And so all that was good stuff. And so you graduate from there after you take a bunch of tests. And then you go to Beltsville, Maryland for 4 months. And that's Secret Service only. So in Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, there's CBP, so Customs Border Protection. There's HSI, well, ICE now. Just a bunch of different federal agencies trying to learn basic federal stuff. Hey. And so once you graduate from there, you go to Secret Service only, and that's in Beltsville, Maryland. That's 4 months. And then you learn protection the way Secret Service does it. You learn investigations the way Secret Service do it. All kind of practicals and stuff like that. And that is a lot bit more serious in terms of just how serious it felt. Like it wasn't such a jovial atmosphere. It was more getting down to business for the most part. So then I graduated from there, and first assignment back here in Kansas City, It was like George W. Bush was visiting into town, and I'm a week out of the academy. I was like, all right, you're on with the presidential protection guy. You guys are going to team up and do routes for George W. Bush. And they land the cars into Kansas City with the armored limo. And when they land the cars, first of all, the cars travel with the president wherever he goes. So they're flying the cars in a day before. And so they take all the cars out, and they asked me if I want to get in the car. I'm like, yeah, I want to get in a limo, in the armored limo. And they have it's a motorcade, no matter where, even if he's not in it. It's still a motorcade. It's still got a police escort with it. And only the way you know whether someone's in there or not and it's an actual movement is the flags are on the car. So if the flags aren't on the car and the decals and shit's not on the car, he's not in there. It's just they're just moving it somewhere else. And so I was in the car. I'm a week out of the academy. I'm in the passenger seat of the presidential limo. They call it the Beast. And then the backup Beast behind it and all kind of other cars, the follow-up and all kind of other cars, police escort. And as we're driving through these neighborhoods and stuff that I used to police, people are waving and shit because they think the president's in there, windows all tinted and shit. I'm like, this is fucking surreal right now. So, yeah, that's what training was like. I wouldn't say it was super hard, especially compared to football practice. It wasn't hard at all.
You got to tell the story.
Swimming?
You got to tell the story.
Shit. So I didn't know that swimming was a part of the Secret Service deal. Like
Andrew, this is the best fucking story.
Like I told you before,
I'm pumped about it.
I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. We didn't have like neighborhood swimming pools and shit like that. And then when we did go to the pool on the off chance, it was just like you would jump into the shallow end, just fuck around with your friends and stuff like that. And then so the most I really swam was like I moved my arms like that, and kind of when I got tired, I just fucking stopped and I was in the shallow end. So that was childhood. And so now I get hired by the Secret Service, and one of the guys asked me, can you swim? And I was like, yeah. He was like, oh, so you'll be good. I'm like, oh, fuck it. All right, I'll be good then. I said, wait, why are you asking? He's like, because they got a swim test. He's like, you just got to swim 6 laps, and that's it. I'm like, oh, fuck, all right. I had never swam an honest lap in my fucking life. So I didn't know what exactly he was talking about. And laps was down, back, 1, down, back, 2, down. But that was laps. I had no idea. And so we get to Beltsville, and they have this swim test that you got to do 6 laps. And then they were like, not only do you have to do these laps, but you got to do different strokes. Like you got to do breaststroke 1 and then this stroke. And I'm like, all right, whatever, man. I said, first of all, I don't know none of them strokes, but I said, I'm just going to freestyle the whole time. I'm still thinking I'm about to pass this fucking test. So the thing is, we had this girl in our class, and all the physical shit we would go through, she would always come in dead last. And she was not very physically astute, I'll say. She would always come in last. And so when it was time for us to swim, and let me just say this, before we swam, they showed us a video of motherfuckers drowning in real life. And they showed us like, it's not what you think it looks like when people drown. They're not flailing, doing all that stuff. Usually it's very calm and they're going down. And so we watched like 20 minutes of people's lives just being fucking lost. And I'm like, damn, all right. But that's not going to be me because I can swim. So we get in the water, and I'm in the first group to go. And I look down and I see the girl, and I'm like, well, at least I know I'm not coming in last, because she is in the fucking group that I'm in. And I'm like, all right, so I'm ready. I say, ready. And they tell us you cannot touch once you leave this state, you can't touch the wall till you're done. So don't go down there and hang on the fucking wall and try to get your breath and then come back and say, once we start, you start. It's like, I'm all right. All right, ready, go. I start flailing my fucking ass off. Like, water's all in my face and shit. And I'm thinking I'm making headway, but I really can't tell. I kind of slow down for a bit and look up. Everybody, including the girl that I thought I was going to beat, is heading back. And I'm just halfway down. And now I'm hearing all the people in the class like trying to root for me, like, come on, Los, let's go, Los, let's do it. And so I used all my heart and soul to get down one time to the end of this water, because I used all the wrong technique. It was my muscles, everything was burned. I was out of breath. I didn't give a damn what they said. I hung onto that wall. And I'm like, fuck, man, I got to do this like 6 more times. And they was all still yelling, come on, Los, you can do it. You can do it. I was like, all right, because I wasn't about that quitting shit. I was like, I can do it. I can use my heart and I can get through this. So I kicked off the wall and I start doing that shit again. They're all coming back and going. They're just smooth sailing. I get to the middle of that fucking water and I can still hear them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm about to fucking die out here. I felt it. I made a decision. I was like, y'all not going to talk about me for life. Talk about, hey man, there was this dude in the caddy, man. He died. He died here. I didn't think he had. And so and they had these little separators and lanes. I just grabbed onto that shit. I was bobbing and shit. And they were like, come on, Lowe's, come on. You can. I'm like, oh, no, fuck, I'm done. And so we had to do that. And then I already failed that part of it. So then they're like, okay, another part of the test, when y'all done with that, they threw a gun down at the fucking bottom where there was like 12 to 13 feet of water. It was a plastic gun, not plastic, but like a rubber. So it would sink down there and stay. You had to go down there, get that fucking gun, and then come back up and tread water and fucking give somebody commands. Like, first of all, I can't even tread water. Gun, no gun, it don't fucking matter. I can't tread water. So me going down and getting this shit, it's just me risking my life for no reason. But dumb me, I did it anyway. I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to at least go down and get the fucking gun. I go down there, I'm like, trying to get down. I'm like, this shit, I gotta have enough air to get back up. I'm fucking done. So fuck that gun. I came back up. And I was like, shit, I can't do it. It's over. It's fucking over. And so I was in remedial swimming. And I'm gonna just keep it real with you guys, man. We family. I'm gonna keep it real. There was 6 black dudes in my academy. 5 of us was in remedial swimming. Fucking 5. I was like, you too, man. I don't fucking know what happened. Shit, I thought I could swim, man.
So I found out about this because me and our wives and Travis Conley, you met, we all went to dinner one night. We were starting talking about maybe going on vacation. Right. I said, let's go on a cruise. He was like, he turned white. He said, no way am I going on a cruise. He said, I don't do water.
So wait a second. So you ain't going down in a submarine to see the Titanic?
Oh, hell no.
That's
hell no.
stupid.
I would have done that. I don't like doing stuff like what they call that shit, tubing,
right?
And shit. Because I mean, it's fun until you come off that bitch, and then it's like all of a sudden for me, it's like, all right, shit. Now it's survival. Because now, I mean, listen. So I went to remedial swimming, right? And to get out of remedial swimming, you had to do 4 laps, and they counted laps like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Any way you can do it. And so I was in remedial. They were trying to teach me how to do the strokes and all that shit. And every time I would try to like do this, water would go up my fucking nose, and I panic and I break up my form and like fuck. So, but I could doggy pedal my ass off. And so, long story short, it ended up me getting out of remedial swimming. I started doing the stroke to get out, and then halfway through, water went up my nose. I said, fuck it. So I just kind of doggy paddled. Longest fucking swim test ever. I got out, doggy paddle, and then you had to tread water for 2 minutes. Doggy paddle in a fucking circle, a tight one. For 2 goddamn minutes. And then I got out and the instructor was like, he was like, you passed, but if I were you, I would continue to come. I said, duly noted. You'll never see me again in this bitch.
So here, we went, so I had my shoulder replacement. And then it got infected, and then I had the spacer in, and then, so this I had the spacer in for 4 years. So this past December, they took the spacer out and they put the prosthetic back in. So 9 weeks after surgery, me and Michelle go to the Cayman Islands with a bunch of our friends. And we rent a yacht and we're going to go swimming with the stingrays. And my buddy Chuck, he had surgery maybe 2 weeks before me. And he jumps in the water first. And so you got to swim probably, oh shit, I bet you it was.
No life jacket?
No life jacket.
No life jacket.
You had to swim about 30 yards onto the sand barge. Okay. And Chuck gets over there and he goes, Frank, don't do it. He said, it hurts. Don't do it, Frank. I'm like, well, I ain't going to let everybody else do this. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. So I swim over to the sand barge. No problem. Because there was a current, right? So if you get drifted, 10, 15 yards, you could stand on the sand barge and walk over to the stingrays. No big deal. But then you got to get back on that damn boat. Well, what the guy had told us to do, and I didn't realize it, was you had to go 20 or 30 yards down away from the boat and then swim horizontal, and then the current would take you right to the boat. Well, me and Michael Sansoni, We didn't get that memo, right? So, dummy us, we're swimming straight to the damn boat, and now we're 20, 30 yards past it. And so I'm trying to stay calm, and I only got one arm. My right arm's not going to swim, so I'm doing one of these, and I'm going nowhere. And the captain looks at Michael. He's probably 10, 15 yards behind me, and he goes, "Are you okay?" And Michael goes, "Yeah, I'm all right." And I'm like, "Fuck, he's gonna have to come in and jump after and get me." And then Michael goes, "Actually, I don't think I am." And the captain, who's a 65-year-old man, has to jump in and save Michael. And I'm like, yes, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, because my pec, my left upper trap, everything just seized up on me. And my wife goes, "Are you okay?" And I go, "No, throw me that fucking rope." So she's got to swim the rope to me, and we have to pull ourselves into this damn boat on this rope.
Shit.
The captain has to grab Michael. Me and him get up there like two freaking whales, throwing up. It was just, I was like, I can't even believe I did this.
Man.
So then when we went back with the kids, I'm like, I ain't putting my kids in that situation. So he took us to a different spot where you just jump out and it's just 3 feet of water. No big deal. I'm like, where was this when I was here?
At first, yeah.
Why on earth would you bring me to this other place? But anyway, that's how it went down. And I'm funny about water too. I am, especially with my kids. Because I mean, if
you got a pool.
Huh? That's different. It's 3 feet. I can stand in it.
Yeah.
It's 3 feet, 5 feet, 3 feet. I can stand everywhere. No problem.
Anything with current, you can't.
The word current is just, it's a bad word. I mean, I don't know. I'm not that good of a swimmer with two arms.
Rip current.
Yeah. I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to get to the part of the segment where we talk about the twins.
Mm-hmm.
What were the twins' names?
So the twins were Malia and Jasmine.
They were girls.
The girls. Yep. So this was my senior year in college. Actually, this is about the same time that I found I was getting hired with the police department in Kansas City, Missouri. And so my girlfriend at the time, it was about the same time we found out she was pregnant. And then at the same time we were going, and before I was even hired, and I knew for sure that I was going to have a job and a way of doing anything with my life. My ex-girlfriend at the time, she told me, I came home to our little apartment one day. She was like, I think she said something like, "Guess what?" I said, "What?" She says, "I'm pregnant." And I'm like, my whole world was like, damn, I'm not ready for this, because I don't know how I'm going to support everyone, this family. And so then we go to the doctor sometime later, and she was like, the doctor was doing the ultrasound, and she was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I'm sitting in there, and she's like, "Here's your baby, and here's your other baby." And I'm like, okay, now things just went from, oh my God, to, oh my damn, like, how am I going to, like, all this stuff. So I didn't have a job, like I said, but I'd already applied with the department, and they end up calling me back. And so at the time, I was like, so I'm going to go down to Kansas City. And she wanted to stay there for a while and finish up some stuff she had to do in school. And we were going to get together later, And she was into like the 6th month of the pregnancy. And so I was in Kansas City at the time, still trying to get out of the academy and graduate. And then I get a call saying that she's gone in labor and actually delivered the twins.
So she's only 6 months.
She's only
pregnant.
6 months.
So
yeah.
they were preemies.
They were very premature. One was a pound, one was about 1.5 pounds. And so, like, if this would have happened, 5 years or so prior, they wouldn't have had any chance, because the technology hadn't got up to the point that where they could be sustained with outside of their mom. And so by the time I got there, we're at Iowa City Hospital, right across from the Iowa Hawkeyes Stadium. I think that's what it's called, either Children's Mercy or Iowa City Hospital. And so they were there, and to see them, I was like, they were so tiny. I mean, like it's fitting in the palm of your hand, really. And so Jasmine, she was significantly underdeveloped, to the point that where she only survived for like 30 days. And so then she passed away. And then Malia, who was more developed, but her lungs just wasn't developing at the same rate as the rest of her. So she was basically in the hospital for a year and a half. And so that year and a half, I was back and forth from Kansas City to Iowa City Hospital because they couldn't leave.
So you're still trying to get on the Kansas City Police Department.
And at this point, Malia was in there so long that I was actually on the department. I had made it, and my girlfriend at the time was still close by. So it was an hour trip for her to go to the hospital, and for about 4 hours for me to go to the hospital. So we were both driving to the hospital, because Malia couldn't leave. She actually did leave one time, but she was like life flighted back that night because she got so sick to where she was going to die if she didn't. And so, man, that went on for a year and a half of just, we celebrated a birthday for her, 1 year birthday in the hospital. And so she was just in the NICU that entire time, either the NICU or intensive care, and just,
bounce back and forth from NICU to intensive
care.
Yeah, Jasmine passes 6 weeks.
Like 30 days.
30 days.
Yep. About 30 days after she was born. So we had a funeral for her, and then it was a year and a half with Malia in the hospital. But also at the same time, like I told the football team, there was other stuff going on in my life as well. So my nephew, at the time that my daughter Malia was in the hospital, so he had asthma. Ever since he was born, he had real bad asthma. And so he actually needed a breathing machine to kind of control it at times. But then in emergency situations, he would use an inhaler. Well, one night, and he's in Columbus, Ohio. I was in Kansas City, police in Kansas City. One night, he had an asthma attack, and his inhaler couldn't be found. His tube had shut down. His airway had shut down all the way, and basically, paramedics tried to get there. They took him to the hospital, and then my mom called me at like 3 early hours in the morning, and it's never good when somebody calls you at that early in the morning. It's family like that. So she calls me, and she's like, "I need to come to Ohio." His name is Devon, had an asthma attack, and it doesn't look good. So I knew by the tone of her voice that I had to get there. So I ended up driving, all night and getting there in the morning. And he was in a hospital, and he was there for about 3 or 4 days until they told us, basically he had no activity in his brain. And once that happens, a person's not coming back. And so he was taking off life support. So it was that. And he was like I felt anyway, he was like a son to me, more than a nephew, because there was a time that he lived with me when I was in high school. In that, so he really looked up to me, and he was the one that would jump into my arms when he saw me from being away for a time. So that really struck me, because we had all these memories and everything deep and hard. And so driving back from that and just having that kind of do your world in, and then Malia ends up passing away. And then dealing with that. But then also I couldn't go to my grandmother had passed away too. In that same time, could not go to her funeral because we were planning Malia's funeral.
So then your mother buried 3 grandkids.
And her mom.
And her mom.
Yeah. And then, so all that stuff happened, in a year, about a year and a half time span. So it was a really crazy 2003 going to 2004 was just this time of just, like, what is going on? It felt like God himself was coming down and putting his finger on my life, not so much as I'm going to hurt you, like your body. It's everything around you that you love, which is going to be falling apart, kind of at the same time. And so it was crazy for me being a cop at the time, because there was a time that, I didn't know I was a young dude. So I'm like, I don't know how to process all this, but.
Well, you were, let's see. You were probably 25 years old. Yeah.
So as a young dude, a lot of times we process stuff in a form of aggression. Like, I'm going to be, fuck everybody, and being a cop with that mentality is not a good thing, because people test your shit all the time. And I was waiting for someone, and this is just honesty. I was waiting for someone to really test me.
Please give me an excuse to shoot you.
Yeah, because I felt like if somebody bought their ticket, they have no reason to be on the earth after all the innocents I seen die. Why are you even living? Is it like how I was feeling? But luckily, at that time for me, that's when the school resource officer program opened up, and I got to work with other kids for a time that had also gone through tough situations, also going through people they lost people in their lives, murders, that people had gone through very serious things, rapes and sexual abuse. And while I didn't share my story like I'm sharing here with them, because it wasn't that type of relationship, they could see from how I was that I could relate to what they were going through. And they related to me, and I was able to help a lot of the kids in that school trust police officers, see more than a police officer, see a person, and that somebody who really cared about them. And so I feel like, in a way, all the stuff that I went through, if for nothing else, it helped me through that portion, help somebody else, be able to relate that's going through a tough time.
What do you think? What do you like? So, like, I look at my situation, and there's could be people listening that don't necessarily know my whole story, but you and I shared very similar stories, and I was 21 years old when I lost my first son, and then and I look at how I dealt with it, very similar to you. It was fighting, it was promiscuity, it was alcohol and drug abuse, it was all that stuff, and then, but at the time he was my only son that I lost. So I didn't have a family that I had to deal with like I did when Nina died, and I also, I had no spiritual discernment at all, so when Andrew Ross died, I completely blamed God for it. Similar to what you're saying,
Yes.
like you felt like God was coming after you. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with that shit. I don't want to hear it. Don't bring it up to me. I don't want no part of a God that's going to let that shit happen. I want no part of him. You know what? I don't even care. Leave that. Just don't even bring that up to me. Because, God has a plan, and God only does things to you that he knows you can handle. And who the fuck wants to hear that shit, but then, when Nina died, I actually, I pressed in way, way more, and so, I think, with Andrew Ross, time kind of got me through it. And I don't, you don't want to say got you through it, because you never get through it. You're always getting through that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's not something you ever just like get through and you're like, oh, I'm all better, as you know.
Yep.
But what would you say helped you cope with that the most?
To be honest, so I've always put aggression into. I was more of a type of person that would make myself suffer more than somebody else. I would if that opportunity presented itself. Like I said, I was looking for something, but more of it will be that whole workout aspect. I'm going to get these emotions out, this aggression. So I've always done that in the weight room stuff. But to be honest, there's a couple of things. One thing is, you hit the nail on the head, is that you never get over it, but with time, things become easier to deal with. And an example of it is if things first happen and they're fresh, everything that happens, everything you see your loved one and everything that people do, you see them on TV, you see them, and you're at the grocery store and somebody's doing something that reminds you of them. And what does it do? It hurts, because you just think about the fact that you can't have them and you can't be around them, so, but over time, those same things that made it hurt is the same things that, man, it kind of make you smile and like, man, I remember when he used to do this. I remember when, he used to come up and do that and bring a little smile to your face. But I'll be honest with you, there are times, and like years down the road, I was driving to jiu-jitsu 43, and this has happened, recently. I'm driving to jiu-jitsu in the morning, and I just break down crying. Oh, because I'm thinking about it.
You know what I mean? I hear you. No, listen, it's sometimes it hits you like a ton of bricks. You don't want to get out of bed.
And the thing is, you haven't cried in years about it. The most thing, and you could, like, I'm sitting here, I could talk about it now, but like in years you haven't cried about it. But then it just hits you, so it will never. Things like this will never go away. But it gets easier to deal with. The other thing is, I hit on a little bit. Honestly, working with those kids, some of the situations that they had gone through, some of the things that they had. I remember one girl was acting out at Central High School, where I used to be a school resource officer at for a little bit of time, a couple years. She was acting out, man, and she was fighting and she was being defiant and things of that nature. And I just sit down and start talking to her, man, and like what's really going on. I see, your grades is suffering and you're not doing it. You there's got to be something else that's going on. And by the end of it, because I didn't come at her in a judgmental way, because I'm just talking to her like a person. She ended up telling me what was going on, and she was being sexually abused at home. And she was like, I really don't. You're the first person I done told this, and I don't want to get nobody in trouble, but I'm just saying that this stuff is happening, and don't report. But I had to, because you have to report it as a first responder. And I told her I would have to, but I said, this is the first step in healing. This is the first step in actually dealing with this. It's first step of reclaiming your life back. And it's stuff like that. Another girl at the school got her boyfriend murdered over the summer, had to deal with that, in her life. And just when I could talk to people on that level, and having gone through tremendous loss myself, I'm not just saying stuff like God has a plan and everything gonna be okay. And knowing that I've never been through something like that, such hardships, people can sense that.
Right.
They can sense when you haven't been through stuff like that. So you really can't relate to it. So they really, and as a person that's been hurt like that, you really can't tell a person, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, move on. So you just eat it like, oh yeah, I understand, and let them go. But when there's something somebody that's on that level, then y'all can sit there and talk and really feel each other's pain.
Right.
And that helps the both of you. Is
Sure.
what it ends up doing. So that really what's helped me.
110%. And luckily, like when Nina passed, I had went through it already, and I was able to protect Michelle from some of the stupid shit that people say to you to try to make you feel better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, there were so many times I would grab my wife and say, Michelle, do not listen to that. Don't let that, enter you. People be like, oh, you're not ever going to be the same. Well, no, you're not. You're not ever going to be the same. That doesn't mean you can't have joy in your life.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That doesn't mean, so there's so many things that people say to you when you're going through that can really push you further and further down. And I know that's not their intention.
Yeah. One of the craziest things, and I told, my wife this, maybe told a couple other people, because we talking about crazy shit that people say to you in that moment, not knowing what to say. And if you don't know what to say, just don't say nothing. Just say,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, and give my condolences, those type of things. Don't come up and try to drop a jewel. Right. Because, 9 times out of 10, you can say some stupid shit. So at Jasmine's funeral, my daughter who passed away 30 days after.
That was the first one.
That was the first one.
Yeah.
At her funeral, we having the funeral here. And it's just smallest casket you can imagine. And we're sitting there, and then my stepdad, who he has his own issues to this day, but he come up to me because he wants to be like this religious dude, but he's also have done some egregious things in the past that I really won't get into here, but he's the top level egregious, right? And he comes up to me and he's like, he's like, the wages of sin is death. Because there's some verse in the Bible that says the wages of sin is death.
With no context behind it at all.
The context was basically, and this is what I get from him, and I didn't talk to him no more about it, because at the funeral and at that time wasn't the time to just go crazy and just be like, because I knew what he was trying to say. What he was trying to say is, because me and my ex-girlfriend had premarital sex outside what the Bible says, this is what happens. Right. And so I'm like, what I should have said at that time is, okay, so how come you ain't dead yet? Of all the shit that he had done, he should have been killed twice. Right. But that's just the thing. But I don't think at the time, like, knowing him, he meant any hurt or harm. He just wanted to say some jewel type shit that would, like, I don't know.
Well, and here's the deal. You could blow that fucking philosophy out of the water. How many kids are alive and well, thriving, that came from people who weren't married when they had them?
Exactly.
It's an asinine comment.
And what it means is, for the wage of sin is death, means Jesus died for the sins of man, and the other side of that saying is, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus.
Yeah, and I think that he missed all that.
He missed
the context of what it is.
He would have been dropped that shit and was just like fuck, I just moved on and went to somebody else, man.
Yeah. So let me ask you, like, one thing that helped. Well, I don't even know. So I finally, like, when Nina died, I was like, I'm done trying to deal with this myself. You know, I'm completely done with it. You know, I never really grieved Andrew Ross's death. I mean, I literally covered it up with, you know, like I said, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? And I never really grieved it. And then when Nina died, it was kind of like a double whammy on me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I finally I can't handle this with sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, I got still 4 other kids and, you know, a wife, and I don't get this luxury now. I'm going to go get help. And I not only have to be able to help myself, but I have to be able to help my grieving wife. I have to be able to help my grieving stepson and my 3 grieving kids, you know. And so one of the things the therapist told me was, do you ever talk about Andrew with your kids? And I'm like, no, I don't. You know, I never really have. We never went to the cemetery. I never showed them videos of their brother. I've never, you know, we'd have the Andrew Ross Termini Foundation, and we'd have, you know, we'd raise money, and we would never even talk about Andrew Ross and what happened to him. And so one of the things that I started doing with the kids was, okay, let's watch videos of Andrew Ross. Let's let you get to meet him. Let's, you know, start talking. And so now I'll say I have 4 kids, and my kids will be like, no, Dad, you got 6. Well, sometimes you don't want to get into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't want someone saying, well, how old are they? And what are they doing now? Well, one would be 28 and one would be 24. And you don't want to get into that shit with them all the time. So you just simply say, I have 4 kids, just to prevent it. It's not like you're forgetting the other 2.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But
it's tough conversation having small talk.
you don't want to,
It really is.
you know, you don't
Yeah.
want to have someone come up and say, what do you say? And, you know, and then you go into that shit, you know, because a lot of times how you doing is just really a rhetorical question. They really don't give a shit how you doing. You know,
You start explaining that shit.
I can't remember.
I should not have asked this motherfucker how he was doing.
And you get halfway through the story, and you're like, I don't even know this guy's name.
Yeah, exactly.
Guy's name 15 minutes ago.
yeah. So I don't want to get into it. And so, but my kids, you know, if I say I have 4 kids, they'll immediately correct me. And then here I am, you know, having this conversation. But so do you do that with Olivia and Junior? I mean, do you talk about Malia and Jasmine? Do you have pictures of them? And do you show them pictures and stuff like that? Or do they know their brothers, their sisters? And
So Malia and Jasmine, not so much. We don't talk about them a lot. They do know of them and know their names and know they passed away and how and the whole story. But I don't have their pictures around like I do. My nephew, I have his picture up on the mantle, and they know about him and things. And we don't really talk about that a lot. So I mean, it's something that we probably still could. It's a little bit of a different situation with the girls, but with my nephew, probably so.
Do you think it's tougher to have that conversation when a baby that age hasn't really formed their personality, and it's like it's really just photos of a beautiful child?
Yes,
but it's tough to kind of describe who they were
exactly
because they haven't really formed that personality yet.
Yep. And that's one of the hardest things to contend with, because yes, I mean, it was a very difficult time. All the things that could have been, all the memories that could have been, and even with Malia being a year and a half, most of those interactions it was never like I never really got the full on experience of being a dad until I had Olivia, you know, Olivia and little Carlos. And so, and that was the full on experience of they're yours. Like nobody's here looking up. Cause so when I was in the hospital, you know, you got a nurse and doctors and everybody all around, and you really I couldn't pick her up and hold her. Because there was all kind of tubes and stuff like that. So there's not, like you said, the formative memories and stuff like that is not as hard to just be like, you know, tell them about, you know, these were your sisters. These was how they were as far as personality wise. So that's not there, but definitely with Devon, I mean, that's definitely there with him. I mean, the personality, the memories, and all the stuff that we had gone through.
And back to what you were saying about like how you pour into others. You think it's probably, you know, possibly because when you lost your daughters, you missed the opportunity to pour into them. And so there's this part of you that still wants to be able to pour in, and you'd have the capacity to pour into, you know, all 4 children.
Yeah.
It's 4, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So all four children, but now because they aren't here with you, you're just still using that capacity to pour into other students. When you worked, just anybody as your test in life is becoming your testimony, and you're sharing that with them. You think that's
Absolutely. I think that's it. And I think that is what still helps me, like you said, cope with it to this day, is a chance to do that. And from what I saw as far as, my daughters and my nephew, I mean, that really affected me to the point that I really have a soft place in my heart for kids, and that they, especially, those young kids, they haven't had a chance to really form their lives yet and form their opinions about things. And like, as far as adults, a lot of, like me included, I'm included in that. Now, I've made so many mistakes and done so much things that I could say that whenever is my time to go, it's my time. I've had a life, I had a chance to live a life, but some of these kids, like with the innocence and that, you do want to pour back and give to them, give them a better chance to have a life like we're having, at this point.
Sure. Are we good on the cameras, Drew?
Yeah, Frank, we're good.
All right. So the other thing that I'm curious, so like when Rosa was pregnant with the kids and when the kids were babies, and I speak from my own personal experience, were you like hyper cautious helicopter dad? Is everything okay? Michelle, you're getting cramps. Are you all right? And she'd be like, yeah, I'm fine, Frank. Relax. And in her mind, she wasn't really understanding why I was the way I was. And I really didn't want to tell her why I was the way I was because I didn't want to get into it. But I mean, even now it's like I constantly hit like the worst fears, like, man, please, I don't want to have to lose another child ever again. You know what I mean? So do you find yourself like, number one, being hyper cautious with your kids now? And do you worry about that? I mean, I guess every parent probably worries about it, but when you've actually had it happen to you, I mean, I think
I can say that there is no feeling of, and the one thing that was removed from me, and I think a lot of parents, I would venture to say most parents, have this feeling that it's not going to happen to their child and their situation, something to the gravity of the fact I'm going to lose a child, because most people don't deal with that, and they probably never will have to. So in a lot of instances, people really subconsciously think that it's not going to happen. So, but that veil of innocent protection, we don't have it, right? Because we know for a fact that this can happen. I used to think that when I got on the airplane and I saw a baby get on the airplane, there's no way that God would let this. I know it's stupid to me to think of it like this way. That I know this plane is safe because look at that innocent child. That veil of protection or thought is now, it's not there. So
one thing is that losing Andrew Ross, I obviously cannot. I can empathize. I can't sympathize with you guys because I haven't gone through the loss of a child. But one thing that's kind of always kept me kind of going is that life on Earth is short and eternity is extremely long. And so when you look at terms and things of terms of like life, like whether it's short or whether it's 90 years, eternity outweighs the entire thing. So if you're a faith-based thinker, I think that kind of can be soothing, in coping.
Sure. So how do you deal with it, like on your end? So do you even have that issue? Well, I know you said that, that the veil's gone, but or do you find yourself hyper cautious with Carlos and Olivia?
So I don't want to say hyper cautious. I still want them to live their life. I would say that and I don't know if this is normal or not, but I know when Rosa was pregnant with Olivia, and she can attest to the fact that, I was really like every little thing, like when it was almost time for her to deliver, I was like, are we ready? Are we going? What are we doing? All the shit's ready. Let's get all our stuff, and I was just so like on edge, and she was more looking like relaxed, and she's the one that's having a kid. I mean, it's her first, but it felt for me like my first experience with everything, because like I said, when the girls were born, it was just a phone call I got that they were here now. They weren't supposed to be here for another 3 months, but now they're here, and I just get there. I walk into a world of every day could be the last, so that sort of thing. So it wasn't typical. So when with Olivia, I would say that part of it, the birth, a part of it, her being a baby and all this stuff, that I was really more kind of, I would say protective, and probably be a little hyper protective. Now I would say I try to give them room to grow and be themselves.
You have to.
But at the same time, oh boy, like we just went, for example, we just went to vacation in Florida, and when they were out in the water, just like you said, I was worried about rip currents and currents. Like, is Junior gonna be safe? So I couldn't be fully relaxed out there.
Not in the water ever.
Even when I'm at home now, and now that you speak on it, I say I'm not so hyperprotective, but I'll tell you this: I don't sleep very soundly because I feel like I can't go into the deepest, most comfortable sleep when I know that I'm the person responsible should somebody decide to come up in here and do something.
Do you think that's partially because of your service and PD?
Well, yeah, but
and Secret Service,
even the Department of he works for the Department of Homeland Security now, so you see all the sex trafficking and all that other bullshit going on. So you know the ins and outs of all that. So that's got to even make it worse.
I mean, it's weird because as a firefighter, you're prepared for readiness. So and I can only imagine that it escalates into another level when you're speaking about carrying a firearm.
Yeah,
and so your readiness is always kind of like you're always hypersensitive to that.
Yeah, the funny thing is there was a time, and I'm to tell you right now, the KCPD was the most action physically as far as fighting people, pulling your gun, doing all kind of craziness that you can imagine. So there was a time when I was working with the KCPD, and then a short time when I was working for the Secret Service, to where I did live alone, and I slept well because I knew that if somebody come up in here, somebody ain't walking out, somebody getting dumped, it's going to be me or them.
You didn't have to worry about roasting the kids.
And I didn't have, I was like, I wasn't all about like, I'm afraid that, it could be me. I was like, if it's me, it's me. But it's not. When I have my kids, and Rosa can tell you, I don't sleep well. I feel like the slightest little noise gets me like, it'll get me out of my sleep, so I'm never deep sleeping.
My alarm guy thinks I'm crazy because I got sensors in every window, every door. I got a window 30 feet in the air, and the guy goes, "You want a sensor on that?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "Could a guy get in there?" He goes, "With a ladder." I said, "Could he get in there?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Put a fucking sensor on." Yeah. I am like, you would think I'm like some drug lord. I got cameras. I got everything because I have to be able to put my head on the pillow, and if somebody comes in, and every night I go to bed, I set that thing. No delay. If somebody comes in, I want that alarm immediately going off. Mm-hmm. So I don't fool around. And I got my wife on Live 360. I got the kids with the watches where I could, I want to know where they're at. I just we're the church that we go to does it's called Run to Stop It, and it's a big campaign to raise money for girls who've been trafficked, and they always have all kinds of education on human trafficking. I'm like, I just can't believe how big it is. Yeah. I just can't believe that there's such a demand to have sex with young kids. I can't believe there's that many fucked up people out there.
It really is. It's insane.
And I ain't perfect. I mean, like I said, I was promiscuous, but I always liked older women. So these guys that want to fool. I mean, I look at a 22-year-old girl and I'm like, that's a baby to me. I don't see how a 44-year-old man looks at a 22-year-old girl and is attracted. I mean, of course, I also Nina would be 24. So I watched Nina from the time she was 9 till she passed at 22.
But something should shift in your brain the older you get, that you understand that, even though the young girl is pretty, it's not a sexual attraction.
It's totally different. You could find her attractive and not be attracted to her. It's very different.
Right. And it's another level to act and to manipulate a child that's 22 years old. And, you're right. I still can't believe that it's as big of a thing as it is, because it seems like it doesn't operate within something that I can see or lay my eyes on. It's almost like it's not real,
right? Because you've seen drugs, you've seen arms dealing, you've seen all that shit,
but for human trafficking, it's like it's tough for me to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and it's a huge business. There's a movie out right now. Me and my wife went to go see it, and I don't know if it's still in the theaters, but it's based around human trafficking all around the world.
Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
So we went to go see that, and I actually, because they're at the end of the movie, they say, you know, you donate whatever amount of money so that other people may go see this film. It's one of first of all, it's based on a true story,
Right.
and
Did you see the interview? So the guy that made that movie, if you've ever seen Mel Gibson's version of The Passion of the Christ,
Yep.
did you watch it? Yep. So the guy that played Jesus in that movie, Andrew, give me his name. Help me out here.
I can't think off the top of my head. Give me a second.
that's why he looks so familiar, though.
No, he played Jesus in The Passion,
Yeah.
and he also played in a movie you should watch. You would enjoy it. It's a true story. It's called When the Game Stands Tall. I believe he was the football coach at De La Salle High School when they went 10 years without losing in California, De La Salle High School in California. It's a true story. You would enjoy it. But he plays the head coach in that movie. But he had an interview and he was like, you know what, Hollywood, you want to shame me for this? He's like, basically both middle fingers up to you. You know what I mean? Because I think he really got shamed big time.
What did he get shamed for?
Making that movie.
Why would he get shamed for that?
Hey, Drew, pull up the interview with him. There was an interview with him, and
Okay, so I don't know if this is factual, but it's something that I've recently ran across. The is it Fabian Martin?
That's not the guy. His name's Jim, and it started.
No, I know he was one of the guys who funded the movie. Was recently arrested for in charge with accessory to child kidnapping. I don't know how factual that is, but I mean, it's. I was gonna watch the movie, and it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth that somebody that was associated with the movie has a felony charge with
well, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but I mean, here the impact of the movie doesn't make it any less impactful,
right?
You know what I'm saying, and being a person who's for Homeland Security, I mean, you know that it's a real thing.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely.
And I would like to know more about like the numbers of the, you know, what kind of trafficking rings are busted in I don't know if in our geographical area or just, you know, nationwide.
Well, I remember when the Department of Homeland Security came here after Nina, they had said when it comes to sex and drugs, its interdiction's huge in Missouri. Because it seems like, from what they're telling me, and you'll know way more than I will, but it seems like it comes here and then it gets dispersed all throughout the country, just because of the highway accessibility, from what they were saying to me. So that's why it's so big in Missouri.
Yeah. So as you know, Frank, my wife works for an agency, we'll just call them an agency that deals with this sort of thing all the time. So she knows more about the numbers and things like that. But I can tell you that that talking about that movie, Sound of Freedom, I would definitely take a look at it because not only was it, I mean, it's real, but that gives you a real picture or portrait of the numbers and the problem that why the agent left HSI. So he left ICE, Homeland Security, because of the certain restrictions that are in place. And so he thought he could do more on a private level, and he ended up doing a lot to help people out.
See if you can find that interview on YouTube, Drew.
What interview is that, Frank?
They interviewed him, and he talks about how you know they shamed him for making the film. See if you could find it. But I know my mom went and seen it, and you know she kind of raved about it, and I know I want to go see it. It's just one of those movies that
It's not a feel good.
No, right? Yeah,
no, it is not.
It's not a feel good.
But it's probably a necessary watch, right? You know, it's like
I thought it was just for the fact that because a lot of people, and myself included, I should know better about the realities of the situation, but to have it presented in such a stark reality in front of your eyes, and what these kids around the world are going through, and because like I said before, I don't have that much sympathy for adults. I just because of the things that have happened in terms of, you know, what happens to a grown man, he's out doing, if they're out whatever. But these kids and the ages of that you'll see in this movie, they got no defense.
And so part of me, it's like, can that sickness be fixed? And I don't think it can.
As far as the appetite for it,
I don't think it can be fixed.
I don't think so. No.
I mean, that's like saying, do you think your appetite for a woman could, be diminished? No, I don't think it can.
No,
I mean, so I don't, and to say like, okay, is pedophilia a sexual orientation? Well, just because you say it's a sexual orientation doesn't mean you think it's okay, right? So I do believe that it's probably a sexual orientation as much as homosexuality and heterosexuality. It doesn't mean it's right, but I think people are born that way. I don't think, like, you didn't just choose to like women. I didn't just choose to like women. A homosexual doesn't just choose to like the same sex. They just do. And
yeah, I don't know. I disagree with that, and the fact that when it comes to pedophilia, now I could be wrong, but it seems to me that there is a graduated path towards that type of behavior.
Things just keep happening.
And that maybe at one time you liked regular pornography, and then you see something that barely legal. Oh, what the hell is that? And then you go there, and then it's like, well, shit, I actually want to see something that's kind of, and so it gets more and more deviant with time. So I've heard from people who actually work these cases, and they've talked to some of these people, and they say that, my appetite for it grew more and more, and the ages got younger and younger with time. Now, I can't say that that's the same for everybody, but I feel like that is sort of like a deviant behavior or a bite of forbidden fruit, if you will, that they just keep on going down the rabbit hole. Whereas I feel like some like a heterosexual or homosexual, and this is my thing. I just think that people are born that way, as far as that innate want of another of a woman or a man. But I think some of these behaviors, like if somebody says, and I don't want to get too graphic, but animal type of behavior,
yeah, right, sure.
I don't think people are born wanting to do sexual things with animals. I just think they go down this rabbit hole of pornography and crazy behavior. Like they see shit, like the internet is crazy.
Oh,
anything you could just think of in your mind, you start to see it, and
you could go on any site and probably find it.
You go to Reddit or 4chan. It's like a cesspool.
And I really think that when I think your drive. I don't think the drive to have sex is stronger than the drive to eat.
Yeah.
And when you suppress it, not only does it grow, I think it grows perverse.
Yes.
So I think, maybe it's a guy who maybe has a hard time with the opposite sex. Maybe maybe the guy just can't get laid, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So now, I remember when I was hitting the streets and you go through a little bit of a drought, and all of a sudden that 4 looks like an 8. Yeah. And that 3 looks like a 6, but what if you're a guy that has a hard time connecting with the opposite sex? Now, all of a sudden you're going longer and longer and longer and longer. And, now all of a sudden that guy looks like a girl.
Yeah.
Or that girl looks like a woman.
So a lot of it too is the power differential, the struggle between the powers. Some is like about power. So some of these guys, and most of them, and I have pretty good basing on pretty good knowledge, they're socially awkward. A lot of them are socially awkward,
right,
around the opposite sex or whatever, and that's how it had became for them. So when they deal with much younger people, they have the advantage in terms of the knowledge, the experience, the power, and so they themselves feel more comfortable in expressing themselves sexually without that fear of being rejected by someone who knows what the hell is going on.
Right. Yeah, I never thought about that.
So that's a lot of it with these people. You'll see that's where the whole grooming behavior comes in, and satisfying needs that a child would find appealing, like buying them a new little iPhone, or I'm going to get you some McDonald's or whatever it is. That sort of need that a grown woman will be like, fuck, can you pay my bills? Like the song said. You know what I mean? So they don't want to deal with an adult mentality.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with an adult mentality. They want to deal with somebody they feel they have power over. It's just like rape. Rape, while sexual component is a part of it, a lot of it is just, I want power over this person. And certain rapists, they won't be able to perform unless that person, and let's say feel that power over that person. If that person was a willing participant in the activity,
They wouldn't be able to get hard.
they wouldn't be able to get hard.
Yeah.
So
and that's fucked up to me. I hope oh God, that sounds awful.
Yeah, and I forgot to.
You tell me when I could. Did you find the interview with that Jim?
47 minutes.
Yeah, you could fucking there's that one. No, there's you could go to YouTube and you can it was a
This is why you gotta tell me shit before time
because I just didn't know it was going here.
Right.
You know who sent it to me is my mom. My mom, God love her. So here, politically, I'm moderate, right? We could talk, and I could piss off everyone in the whole room. Because depending on what we're talking about, I can lean right or I can lean left, right? My mother, stark raving Republican, right? So she always sends me all this shit. And half the time I tell her, quit sending me. I don't watch the news for a reason.
Right.
You know, because it aggravates me or it gives me anxiety. One of the two. Who wants to have either one of them? So she sends it to me all the time. All the time she sends this shit to me. Well, one time I actually looked at it and it was the interview with him. So I want to see if I can you know what? I might have erased it. You mean she probably put you on him too?
Yeah.
Or did she quit sending it to you? Sorry. Boom. All right, we're here again. So I have to ask this question because I was automatically just an assumption of mine just by the way you lived your life, a lot of the things that you said. It just seemed like to me that you operated off of biblical principles. But then one time I remember reading on Facebook, you made a comment that despite not being a Christian and despite not being a believer, that you still felt blessed. And so I just have to ask, you know, where do you stand on, I mean, are you an atheist? No judgment. Just
that's an interesting question there. And I think my views on religion have, I don't know, some would say evolved, some would say devolved over the years. It just depends on how you look at it. I grew up in a very, I would say Christian household from the time I went to a Christian school in elementary school from 2nd to 5th grade. We went to church 2 times on Sunday and sometimes on Monday and Wednesday for different reasons, you know, understanding God's class, all that stuff. So well-versed in the Bible and religion I am. As I went through life, I began to question certain things about religion and the Bible in general. And then when I got to college, I really started to question a lot of things as far as some of what I consider to be contradictions in the Bible itself. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I had questions about. And it seemed that most people tell me, you know, it's just, you know, either you believe it or you don't. It's just either faith or not. So without getting too far into the weeds in that's, you know, when I got out of college, I was pretty much said, I was like, you know, I really don't know about this whole God thing. As a matter of fact, I used to spend a lot of time looking at the contradictions and asking people and religiously debating certain things.
I still love watching it.
And then all of these things started happening in my life, right? All this bad shit. And then I was like, is God trying to personally attack me over here? And so to be another thing I didn't mention about how I got, how I started dealing with a lot of this stuff. And it's odd, but I started for some reason writing poetry, and I was kind of good at it. Right. And that's a lot of people don't know that, but I would write stuff, and I would even some of the students and the teachers and stuff at the SR, the school I was a resource officer at, they would read some of the stuff, and that's pretty good shit. So I'll write about everything. Religion, and it had a lot of religious undertone to it, in the favoring aspect of God and the things that he allowed me to see and do, as far, even through all the hardships. So I wrote poetry about my daughters. I wrote poetry about Devon. I wrote poetry about the fucked up state of the inner city. I wrote poetry about why do young black people call each other niggas and how it relates to, nigger, all that stuff, So I'm sorry for saying that on the podcast. But anyway, yeah. I'm just saying that I wrote that, kind of helped me get through it. And a lot of it had that religious aspect to it. I will say that where I stand on religion now is that I am not a fan of religion itself, especially organized religion. I think there's too much contradiction in it for me. And when somebody says, do I believe in God? That is a question to where I would say, I don't know if there is an intelligent creator of the universe, because I think there's a certain point where science itself breaks down and can't explain what's there. What was the prime mover? I don't know. But as far as an intelligent being of all power, and simultaneously being everywhere and all knowing at the same time, and kind of guiding stuff for the greater good, I gotta say that I don't really believe. For example, and I would say, and I know people are gonna, probably could take this the wrong way, but okay, if I'm in a room and there is a 3-year-old child sitting there, and there's a grown man trying to rape said 3-year-old child, and I do nothing but sit there and watch it happen, in my mind, I am just as guilty as the raper of that 3-year-old child.
100%.
If I did nothing to intervene in that situation, then I am just as guilty. Not only am I a piece of shit for not doing anything, I should be going to jail along with that guy, or suffering punishment. Now, the thing is, in religion, in Christianity, God is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. That's everywhere, all knowing and all powerful. And if he could, I don't know, put a pain in his balls or something, a crippling pain or a heart attack or whatever. So you start to ask these questions, that things are happening to people fucked up. Kids and stuff like that all the time. And it just seems to me that it's just the way life is and life goes sometimes, more than to blame, like, God, why did you let this happen? I feel like if I could give him thanks for something, then why can't you also give some blame when stuff happens? So therefore, I don't blame or thank. When I said I felt blessed, more probably the better term would be I feel fortunate, because I know how easily things could have been a different way. And in some cases for me, they did go a different way, sure, into very bad things. So I don't know. It's very.
I think what things you grapple with, and I'm certainly not going to try and change your mind. That's not why I asked the question. I would never ever. I always ask a question when it comes to politics or religion. I don't ask it to, try and change your mind. I'd more ask it to understand. Mm-hmm. Right. So, because, here, have I read the Bible cover to cover? No. Am I as well versed in it as you? Probably not. Am I a Christian? 110%. I 100% am. But I think your argument is, and it's a classic argument, it's for evil against the existence of God, right? It's like, here, if God is all good, all knowing, all powerful, why is this world so fucked up? And, people have made that argument for years, and I've grappled with it myself. Like I said, when Andrew Ross died, I'm like, here, any all good, all knowing, all powerful God isn't going to allow that shit to happen. Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I get where you're coming from with that. I do. And, I will say something that I heard as someone who's been in your shoes and has walked the path that you walk, that kind of helped me make sense of it. And like I said, I'm not by any means trying to change your mind or anything, but it was something that was referred to as the expectation and the experience, right? So you went through Christian school, you went to church a whole lot. You probably went through life feeling like, hey, I'm being obedient and I am living the way that I'm supposed to live. So you expected, right, that because you were doing that God would protect you from all the shit that the world has to offer you. And then undoubtedly you experienced something totally different with Jasmine and Malia, right? So then when you experienced that, your faith got challenged, right? And so now you're in this whirlwind, but I what helped me was, if you do read the Bible, never does it promise that by following him that he's going to be able to protect you from all that stuff. As a matter of fact, it really tells you the exact opposite. If you're going to follow me, pick up your cross, carry it, and be ready, for war, basically. And I think that is something that when I heard that sermon, it made a little bit more sense to me. It's like, that's why good things or bad things happen to good people. And it's because, a lot of times it's, the enemy trying to test your faith and, try to get you to turn away from God. And what I've noticed is as I press in more and more, no matter what I go through, it's easier when I have him than when I didn't, because I can compare, right? So I went through a loss where I completely turned away from him, and I went to the darkest place that you could ever go to. And then I went through a similar loss, right? And then I actually pressed into him, and the path, how do I want to say? I don't want to say it was easier, because it wasn't easier.
You had something to lean your troubles on and lend your troubles to.
And I just, for some reason, I found comfort in it. I found comfort in it. And I think it's definitely, I could see where you grapple with it, though. I mean,
Carlos, we were raised Catholic, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Frank, and this is Frank's perspective. This is my perspective of the whole organized religion. Is there's a disconnect between organized religion and the relationship. It shouldn't be about religion and the organization and the ideology that the organization puts on an individual to think a certain way, because the Bible speaks to relationship. It doesn't speak to it towards religion as an organized entity to manipulate and to twist scripture, as your father may have taken that scripture out of context when you were grieving, to cater that to shape an individual's way of thinking. It should be about a relationship and finding the ease and comfort in your pain. And that's just that's my perspective on it, because it was 2010 when I got baptized as an adult, and that's kind of some of the things that just became clear to me was there's relationship here, and there's to think of the complexity of the human race, to think that just happened on sheer coincidence is just troubling for me. I can't believe it, because I believe that you as complex as you are, and the story that you have, and as smart as you are, and the trials and tribulations of the good that you're doing, there has to be intelligent design behind that. That I just think we are all too sophisticated in order for that to just be happenstance, just to come out of nowhere. So I don't think you ever arrive at a place in faith to where you're like, I'm good. I don't need, it's like as soon as you feel like you're good, there's another test, and that test in life is going to only refine you to be an individual who can have those conversations that you had when you were at school, to actually pour into that individual.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
The thing is, like, I don't want to make it seem like I am unaware of the place for belief in God and belief that there is because my mom is, like I said before, she's very devout Christian, very focused in that religion. That's her thing. My uncle is a preacher and he has his own church, and they are also, I'm kind of the outlier in my family in that. But I do have a deep understanding of why it's there. Even if it is not my thing, I understand why my mom goes to church. I understand why people believe. I understand that in a place of no hope, it can offer some comfort. It just does not do that for me, because intellectually I have things going on that says there's, especially when it comes from the base of it being a biblical scripture, some of which particularly a lot of stuff in the Old Testament where there's some parts of it condoning slavery. There's some parts of it condone just all manner of evil acts. And then some people say, well, that's the Old Testament. You got to, but the thing is, in the end of the Bible, it says, don't add anything to or take anything away from anything that's here. I mean, that's all. The thing about it is, I don't want to really, debate that part of it, because that's not even really the real thing. The issue with me is, I just want to live my life and try to be the best person I can for my kids, for my friends, and do all that I can do. I do not feel that part of that should have to be really getting down and groveling and praying for certain things to happen, when in fact the will of God is going. And when you believe in Christianity, the will of God will be the will of God,
right? Whether you pray or not.
And sometimes you could actually be praying directly against the will of God, and so you should not be upset when the said thing doesn't happen. So I don't feel like not being a Christian or not going to church makes you a bad. In fact, makes you a bad human being. In fact, some of the worst human beings have been said believers or anything like that. So
and just because you sit in the front row doesn't mean you're
here. Listen,
and your tithe is bigger than anybody else. Doesn't give you the free right to do it.
No, and I agree, and I get where you're saying, because you're like, okay, so if you were to ask, like, I think that's like 73% of the United States would call themselves a Christian. So then you would say, okay, so then that would mean 23% of the people are doing all the bad shit in this country. Well, we know that ain't true. Mm-hmm. So let's face it, there's some bad Christians out there. There's a lot of really, really bad Christians out there. And I mean, at the end of the day, there's times where I'm not a good one, more often than not, I mean, and there's times where I make conscious bad decisions, but I get where you're coming from. I do. And I enjoy listening to people's, I like listening to, like, you have Joe Rogan, and he'll have, who's the guy, the attorney? Come on, the Jewish guy. Help me out. God darn it. What's
Come
his?
on, Frank.
I know you guys have all heard his name. How come I'm drawing a blank to this guy's name? He's an attorney. He always has political discourse. He's religious discourse with people of opposite.
It ain't Jordan Peterson.
No, I've listened to him too.
Eric Weinstein.
It's not him.
He's a mathematician.
It's Eric Weinstein's a evolutionary biologist. I like listening to him too. He's an atheist.
One guy who really lays it out well for me is a guy named Sam Harris.
I'm familiar with Sam Harris.
Yeah, he lays out a lot of stuff, and he just doesn't talk about Christianity. He talks about Islam and some other religions as well. But more of it is Christianity, the Christian religion, and Islam, and how, sometimes, and to speaking of Islam, for example, when you see terrorist acts, and then people were like, that's not what Islam teaches, they're wrong. It does, and I won't say they're wrong. I will say there are certain scriptures from what I've seen in the Quran and backed up by the Hadith that tells you to basically make war on non-believers.
Are they taking it out of context?
If you look up some of the stuff that Sam Harris has written, he takes it directly. He doesn't add anything to it. It's quotes. from these things. And it basically, and it says, and I'm paraphrasing when I say make war on non-believers, but when it says it in a much more direct way in some of these texts that he's talking about.
Driving me crazy what this guy's name is. But here, I mean, I get how people can grapple with the concept of a supreme being. You know, I get like, hey, I have a trouble wrapping my head around this, where I don't want to say I lose my patience. I do get frustrated with people who think that science can prove or disprove the existence of God. You know, I mean,
No, it's impossible.
It's impossible. It's impossible because, you know, like the atheist based on science, that will get me aggravated, because there's plenty of people out there that were brilliant minds that were theists. And there's people out there who were brilliant minds who were atheists, right? So, I mean, it just people, for whatever reason, take the same empirical data and they draw opposite conclusions. And I don't know why that happens, but it just does.
Well, look at C.S. Lewis. You know, he was out to set out to prove that Christianity was absolutely 100% false.
And he did the exact opposite.
And did the exact opposite. And
right.
I think that, you know, because my former captain was an atheist, and we kind of would go back and forth with speaking about it. And I said, have you ever taken the time to try to disprove what you feel? And I think that as you try to disprove what you're feeling or validate what you're feeling, you're going to find something. I don't know what that is. It's not for me to figure out what that is for someone else. But I think that as if you're going to take a position of either a believer or a non-believer, you should be trying to validate.
Do some due diligence.
What you're feeling.
Yeah, do some due diligence.
You know what I'm saying? Sure. And for me, proving, I had interactions, you know, personal, real, relational interactions with God that it was undeniable. So my conviction is where it's at because of those interactions. But I had to go out and seek to understand and stop trying to be understood. And not saying that you're trying to sit here and say, understand me. This is where I'm.
No, we asked him the question.
Well,
yeah. So
I respect where you're at for sure, 100%. You know, but I in the same breath, I would challenge you to just continue to seek to understand, you know, what it's all about, because I think it's a journey in life that you never get it. You know, you're always trying to figure it out, and when you think you got it.
I guess my question is, do you find yourself like really wanting, like some of the people that I've spoke to, like Tony George, he's the guy that cuts my hair. He's an atheist, and you know he lost his brother very.
Now, when they say atheist, do they mean they don't believe there is a supreme being, or they don't believe in religion?
They don't believe there's a creator. Okay. He doesn't believe. So we're not just talking about Christianity. They don't believe that there's a creator at all.
And I think that statement right there is just, you can't. I will never make that statement. Why? Because that lies outside of any knowability to say. You can believe what you want. But to say that I know for a fact that 100% there's no God, I mean, that you can't say it. And the reason why in science you can't scientifically say that is because there's a problem of infinite regression, which means that, I mean, you guys know that if you say that there is a creator and you can prove it with science, are you going to prove with that, okay, who created that one? Who created that one? And the one before it, and the one before it. There comes a point where even the Big Bang, as they come out with that breaks down. As far as they feel like they can explain, by they, I mean scientists can explain, you know, things microseconds after the Big Bang, but no one can say what happened before that. No one can say the reason why it got initiated, because all of that stuff falls outside the realm of physics as we know it.
Right.
Even time itself was created. So
yeah, it's a figment of your imagination.
It's not linear.
Well, it's real in that it is malleable, in that time itself can adjust, and it must adjust because of scientific principles of speed of light. If you start traveling fast enough, then the person traveling will experience time at a slower rate. And this is scientific principle, and that's what sets our GPSs. That's what makes that stuff work and be accurate is the account for the fact that time itself is malleable. So it's a real physical thing. And a lot of people don't either know or understand that because you can't really feel it, but it's freaky. It's freaky. The more you sit and study some of this stuff in terms of time,
It'll blow your mind.
Yes. But the point I'm trying to make is I can never say if somebody says you're an atheist, that means you don't believe that there's a God exists. I will never be willing to be bold enough to make that statement. What I can say is debate certain aspects of, like, I would never say Christianity is bullshit. I would never say all of it's false, because there is things in it that I believe, are very accurate, very applicable to all times. And there is some stuff that I say, now this is not.
It's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Yeah,
and contradictory in some places. So that's the only thing I would really debate. If somebody wanted to debate, is certain parts of it. I would never say there's no creator, because I don't know, and nobody's going to know. Either you believe it or you don't. And that's the end of all of these debates. And I've had debates with my wife, my mom, and I don't like doing them anymore.
I got to wonder, because your wife's Hispanic.
Yes.
Which
Catholic.
I got to think they're all very much Catholic.
Yes.
So your wife's a Catholic.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Does she still practice it?
Yes.
Okay. So that. Oh, okay. That's fine. Man, we went long. So, God darn.
We're like almost 2 hours.
Oh, man. We don't have a backup?
No.
Oh, man. We got to have him back. We got to have him back.
So, you could still end the on the audio and just we can end it now.
Oh, okay.
And then get.
We could just finish it. We could still finish it.
Yeah. I mean, this obviously might not be an on camera thing with the camera issues we've had recently, but we'll probably use them as short reels to show the.
Oh, I think Dane can do it to where it looks clean, because me and Dane had ours and it didn't look like there was any stop at all.
Okay.
But anyway, so I have that's a good question. Like, how does that work?
So it's like this. She knows at this point, because unlike here, I actually get into some of the things, and and if I was to point them out, and I don't just say stuff. If I came prepared to talk about this, I will point out in the Bible exactly where it says what I'm saying, how it is. Like, it's hard to reconcile that with what we believe is good actions of a person.
Right.
But yet they're condoned in certain parts of it. So we would go back and forth, and it always ends in this. With my mom, it always ends in anger. So my mom just gets pissed.
My mom was here too. She'd start getting aggravated.
Yeah. So I don't talk about religion with her. I won't talk about religion with my uncle, because it just gets into the point to where anger, because they feel like I'm personally attacking something that's very near and dear to their heart. And it's not going to be that way for me, because it's not near to me. It's more of an intellectual exercise. But to them, I understand how close it is. It's part of their being. Right. And so that's why I don't even like talking about it. And to me, it's like, I'm not going, that's why I don't bring it up. Because I don't want that people to look at me like different, like they can't, I'm, you know what I mean? Have a different feel. But me and my wife, it's just come to the point, she told me this. That's what a lot of people say. It's called faith for a reason. Right. It's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So there's going to be no provability in it. There's going to be no science to it. Is you feel it in your heart, and you have faith that it is so. And that's what she says. And that's why we don't have a debate about it. She said, you can believe what you want to believe, but I'm going to believe this. And she wants our kids to be in the church. And so as much as she wants to take them there and be in it, by all means, they can be in it. And then when they get of age where they want to make their own decision, they can do that too. You know what I mean? But that's where we shake out on it.
Faith is like Wi-Fi. I don't have to see Wi-Fi to know that my phone connects to the internet. Right. And I could check my fantasy teams who all lost yesterday.
I actually crushed it yesterday.
Oh, man. Oh, so somebody did.
I crushed it yesterday. Yeah. I actually absolutely crushed it. I always wondered that. But here, my last question, and then I'm going to be done. As a person who has lost 2 kids, don't you want to believe that you'll be with them again someday? Yeah. And so absolutely. And it's one thing that I remember me and I don't know if you know Mike Baker. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He's been doing it for a while. I do know. I know exactly who you're talking about. And back when I would have such debates, and I would say to them, I would like nothing more for this and to be true and there to be a heaven. And if you did
the things the way you're supposed to do, and you lived your life in a Christ as following after Christ, then you would meet your loved ones again one day in heaven and live, for eternity. But there's a couple of things to that. One, just as I think through it all, I just don't believe, and I could tell myself that and try to make myself believe it, but I'm just not there yet where I can, in good faith for myself, say I believe this is going to be a thing, like heaven and or hell. And a thing about it is, I was thinking about this the other day. I was on a walk. If you do anything for long enough, I don't know of one thing that I could do for say 10 years straight without that thing becoming a source of torture for me. So in other words, if I had to 10 years straight sing praises, that will be torturous to me. Doing the same thing over and over. There'll be no end to it, no rest, no. And again, in heaven's supposed to be, you're supposed to not have need for that. But then again, it's made to me, what is heaven? Your idea of heaven might be different than my idea of heaven. I heard it described in Bibles of streets paved with gold. What the hell does gold mean in heaven? Gold is only of value here because of its rarity and its price and its wealth, and that's what that means. In heaven, none of that should have any meaning whatever. Something being made of gold.
And sometimes I think in biblical terms, they use analogies that you can relate to on this earth so that you can kind of understand the bliss of heaven. So it's not meant to be taken
literally.
Yeah.
But it can.
And then finally, I think it was Peter or was it Paul in Acts? There was only 3 people in the Bible that went to heaven and came back and talked about it. It was Jesus, and I can't remember the other 2. That shows you how much I can't remember who it is, but one of them said eyes can't, your ears can't hear and your eyes can't see. Nothing can describe,
can't comprehend it.
What God has for those who love Him, and I think where there becomes contradiction is when people do sit there and try to describe it and try to make earthly sense out of heavenly concepts, and that's where you're gonna grapple,
and that's where I do grapple. I mean, because I hate to put it in really simplistic way, but when I think about stuff, I start thinking about it, and I start breaking it down. If you think, what's a perfect day for you, like outside? Temperature wise.
Probably 60 degrees and sunny.
76 and sunny.
All right. Let's say it's 60 degrees and sunny. And every day of your life, it's 60 degrees and sunny. That's all you've ever known. Would that even be nice?
No, I get it. You have to experience the shit to enjoy the good stuff. No, I get it.
How long before that everyday bliss becomes a source of you only recognize stuff like that?
Tony Evans, you should listen to him. You ever heard of Tony Evans?
I have heard the name, yes.
So Tony Evans did a sermon one time that says that stuff happens on earth because earth is under the curse of sin.
Well, it happened in heaven too. Originally, when Lucifer and a third of the angels were kicked out, they were in heaven for, I would assume, a very long time before one day it wasn't good enough.
Right. Right.
So, and even like according to the Bible, I mean, like if you just take the story, like you say, that's what happened. Somebody, and a lot of somebodies, were not happy with the conditions. How long before, if all of us and the way we are as people, how unsatisfied we can become even when given everything. And I was just talking about this with Rosa today. I said, a lot of these kids these days, shit just ain't good enough. Like when I was growing up, we didn't have swimming pools in the neighborhood, obviously, So, but now my kids got, 2 pools they can go to at any time, kick back, where are they? In the house playing video games.
Right.
How long before, and even if we had, an indoor pool and we had LeBron James money, I bet you LeBron James has some story to tell about his kids about not appreciating the shit that's laid out before him.
100%.
Point I'm trying to make is that's who we are. And so I don't know that changes. And if that changes, are we still even human?
No, I think that you shed your human skin and you're a soul, which is spiritual, which is, as energy and science proves that energy can never be created or destroyed. It always was and always will be, which is pretty much what they say that God is. So we just transform into a spiritual being, because at the core of who we are, we're spiritual beings. We're not physical beings. So we shed some of the emotional side of things that we don't understand on earth when we transform into the spiritual realm.
I'll send you this sermon from Miles Monroe. He breaks it down really, really good, where he talks about you don't have a spirit, you are a spirit. You're a spirit in a body. And it was a really, really good sermon. It's a good 45 minutes. That I mean, here, and you don't necessarily have to be a Christian to like really dive into what he's trying to say. I'll send it over to you.
I'll get it.
I'll send it over to you. We're gonna have to have Carlos back.
Absolutely. I enjoy talking to him.
It's good stuff, man.
I could sit there and chat with him all day long.
Yeah.
I could sit. Thanks for being on, brother. You know
Thanks
I
for
love
having
you.
me.
You
Thanks
know
for
I love
having
you,
me, man.
and you know I respect you, and that's why you're here right now, sitting here.
I very much appreciate it. And I'll be honest with you guys, I had some level of anxiety about being, because I'd never done a podcast, and it's just like you said though, sitting down and having a conversation. So I really enjoy being here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We'll do it. We'll do it again,
Good
brother.
deal. All right.
Yeah.
Take care, Carl. Sorry.